In front of everyone's eyes, Xianxia slowly returned from 3 kilometers away. All of them were dumbstruck as they looked dazedly at him. A long while later, Suzhen put on a helpless smile and commented, "All right. You win." He decided to cast away the plan he had come up with. First, Xianxia showcased exceptional combat strength, then he revealed his space secret technique. Basically, no one at the scene could defeat or capture him. He was fine with battling against them, but no one could stop him if he wanted to leave, unless someone could seal off the local space in advance. Nevertheless, once a battle took place, any hastily arranged seal would be broken. At that instant, many of their expressions turned dark and solemn. Since the spirit-seizing war started, Xianxia had undoubtedly become the clear winner, and the other bearers only served as foils, which was why they were upset. "Brother Yang, do you mind enlightening us on what you want?" Ning Dao Ran asked with a frown. Xianxia had already snatched the innate spirit fruit, so he must have his own intentions for not leaving. Nevertheless, no one knew what he was up to. "I wouldn't dare to enlighten Brother Ning in any way." Xianxia shot him a look. "I just want to give all of you a chance to live." Xianxia, stop stalling and just spit it out. Lin Feng appeared incensed. He was one of the top disciples from true martial cave heaven, but he was now defeated by some guy that came from nowhere, which was why he was displeased. Xianxia explained, "There's only one innate spirit fruit. Now that it's in my hands, you'll have to kill me if you want to snatch it, but that will be difficult. However, if you can't get the spirit fruit, you won't be able to explain yourselves to your respective divine spirits." Everyone's expression darkened when they heard that. This matter was what they were worried about. Divine spirits were naturally not easygoing beings. They had paid a hefty price to nurture these bearers and increase their strength. Some of the divine spirits even used the powers of their monster cores to help their bearers so that they could leave the grand ancient ruins boundary. Now that these bearers had failed to accomplish their missions, they would have to face the divine spirits' wrath right after they left this place. "Do you have a suggestion then? Can you appease the divine spirits?" Someone yelled. In that case, their safety could be guaranteed at the very least. Xianxia replied with a wry smile, "No one can appease the divine spirits. I'm not capable of doing that. But what if I told you that I can help you avoid them? If they can't find you, they won't be able to harm you, right?" Ning Dao Ran's interest was piqued. "Tell us more." All of these bearers had been left with an imprint by their respective divine spirits. So once they left the primordial land, there was no way they could escape from their eyes. They had no idea whether Xianxia was given such an imprint, but they believed he had one. Xianxia opened his palm and summoned a bead into it. Then he raised it and said, "This is the sealed world bead, a self-contained world. It can accommodate any living creatures that are below the open heaven realm. If all of you trust me, you can hide inside the bead and avoid the divine spirit's eyes." Sealed world bead. An independent world? Isn't that like a small universe? A commotion broke out as everyone observed the sealed world bead in amazement. There were rarely any artifacts that could accommodate living creatures. However, the small universe inside an open heaven realm master's body could do that because it was a world of its own. It could be said that an open heaven realm master's strength was directly correlated to the small universe inside their body. After Xianxia fished out the sealed world bead, many gazes brightened as they became less hostile. If they could make use of this thing to avoid the divine spirit's search, it was actually a feasible solution. However, all of them were cautious. Xianxia's suggestion sounded terrific, but they didn't know what was really on his mind. A moment later, someone asked what everyone else was wondering. "What benefits will you get from doing this? What do you want?" Just like what Xianxia had said, no one at the scene could stop him if he wanted to leave. However, instead of doing just that, he made such a suggestion, which was why they were doubtful. Xianxia broke into laughter. "There's nothing that I want. If there's any benefit to be gained, it's just that we can end the spirit-seizing war. Moreover, after all of you enter the sealed world bead, you won't tell anyone that I've obtained the innate spirit fruit. After I leave the primordial land, I can buy some time to flee that way." He was left with no other choice. It wasn't that he was selfless, but if he didn't do this, regardless of whether these bearers could stop him, they would never let him off, which was troublesome. Furthermore, once they left the primordial land, the divine spirits would immediately find out what had happened. By then, not only would Xianxia be hunted down by these people, but also by the divine spirits behind them. In that case, Xianxia decided to bring them all away. By doing so, he could also make them owe him a favor. These people were bound to achieve great things in the future, so having them owe him a life-saving debt would not be a bad idea. Moreover, just like what Xianxia had said, he could buy some time to flee by doing this. The spirit-seizing war didn't stop after someone snatched the innate spirit fruit. It would only end if he could safely leave the grand ancient ruins boundary. If it weren't for this reason, Xianxia would have fled as soon as he got the innate spirit fruit instead of remaining here. Many people were convinced by his sincerity, and it was not long before someone was heard laughing. With his sword over his shoulder, Dingy strode towards Xianxia and said happily, "Brother Yang, I trust you. This Ding will quit the spirit-seizing war." Upon reaching Xianxia, he turned around and faced the others. Xu Huashang and Gu Pan traded glances before stepping towards him. Previously, they had come to an agreement with Xianxia that they would fend off their opponents and snatch the spirit fruit before coming up with any further plans. Since there was a way that could avoid a battle now, they no longer had the urge to snatch the spirit fruit. After giving it a thought, the little fatty, Su Zhen, approached Xianxia, and he was followed by Xiangying. Just a moment later, 7 or 8 bearers had come to Xianxia's side. Following this good start, things became easier. Subsequently, more people flew over and nodded at Xianxia before curbing their aura and hostility. With an apologetic expression, Feng Yu came over with the 1,000-leaf stone lotus beneath his feet. "Senior brother Yang, count me in." Xianxia nodded at him, and seeing as Xianxia didn't hold a grudge with him, Feng Yu breathed a sigh of relief. Then he turned his head and glared at the bearers who were still hesitant. "Senior brother Yang is magnanimous enough to leave the past behind and bring all of us out of this place. What are you hesitating for? Or, do you want to inform the divine spirits what has happened after you leave the primordial land?" Feng Yu's words were extremely vicious, and as soon as he finished speaking, the expressions of the people beside Xianxia turned cold as they looked cautiously at the bearers who remained indecisive. Since they had accepted Xianxia's suggestion, they were now riding the same boat as him. If Xianxia was safe, they would stand a chance to live. However, if he fell into a perilous situation, they would also suffer. Earlier, Xianxia was the only one who was worried that word would get out, but now a large group of people had the same concern. Faced with the threatening glares, the 20 or so bearers who hadn't made a decision yet felt their hearts jumping to their throats. They came to the realization that if they didn't make their stance clear immediately, they would have to face their rage. Hesitating no more, they leapt towards Xianxia and cupped his fists at him before calling him "Senior Brother Yang." Xianxia replied to them in a humble manner. Things were looking up as none of the bearers had rejected his suggestion. Since everything had been decided, Xianxia told them to set their minds at ease and put them all inside the sealed world bead before settling them down in a particular place. After he was done with all that, he let out a long breath. The spirit-seizing war had finally come to an end. He had gotten the innate spirit fruit, and now he had to deal with those divine spirits. In order to safely leave the grand ancient ruins boundary, he had to come up with a proper plan. With a deep gaze, he stared fixedly at the abstruse pattern on the back of his hand. With this thing in his possession, Xianxia could flip the situation around and make Zhu Jiuyin pay for what she had done. While he was lost in his thoughts though, he suddenly felt an immense repulsive force coming at him from all directions. Looking up, he saw that the innate fruit tree disintegrated and turned into points of light before leaving with the wind. The innate fruit tree was intangible, as was just a convergence of energy. Now that the spirit fruit was taken away by Xianxia, the foundation on which it existed was gone. Since the fruit tree fell apart, the primordial land would soon close. Xianxia relaxed and let the force send him away. After the world around him spun for a moment, he realized that he was already outside the primordial land. Without hesitation, he summoned the shadowless veil and covered himself with it in order to conceal his aura and whereabouts. Right after he was done with all that, many powerful divine senses swept across the place. He stood from all directions and engulfed him. It was apparent to Xianxia that these divine senses belonged to the divine spirits who had been waiting outside the primordial land. Since the primordial land had closed, they had to immediately look for their bearers to find out whether they had succeeded. Xianxia held his breath and fell silent. Soon, the divine senses left and went on to investigate other places. Knowing that the shadowless veil had worked, Xianxia breathed a sigh of relief. In the outside world, there was no way an artifact like the shadowless veil could deceive the divine spirit's senses, as each of them was just as powerful as a high-rank open heaven realm master. The shadowless veil could only block off the investigation of low-rank masters, while mid-rank cultivators would not see through it without careful probing. These divine spirits, on the other hand, were immensely powerful in comparison. However, they were now in the grand ancient ruins boundary, where the powers of these divine spirits had been greatly suppressed, giving Xianxia a chance to take advantage of the situation. The area around him was a mess. After the primordial land was closed, all the cultivators who were still alive inside it were sent out and scattered in a radius of a few hundred kilometers. Xianxia swept a glance over his surroundings and realized that only 40 or 50,000 cultivators had survived. It had to be noted that more than 200,000 people had entered the primordial land. But after just a short period of time, so many people had lost their lives, which went to show how dangerous this adventure had been. Xianxia dared not stay in this place nor use too much of his strength, so he cautiously moved away in silence. The divine senses of the divine spirits kept crisscrossing one another, forcing Xianxia to stop and hide, which significantly slowed him down, resulting in him taking an entire hour just to move 100 kilometers. At the same time, the divine spirits outside the primordial land sported dark expressions because they couldn't detect the auras of their bearers at all. It wouldn't have mattered if it happened only to some individuals, which would suggest that these bearers were too weak or unlucky and had died in the primordial land. However, something clearly was off, as all of them had gone missing. Throughout history, the primordial land had opened countless times, and there wasn't a single time where the situation was so strange. All of the bearers had gone missing, and it wasn't certain whether they were dead or alive. The divine spirits looked inquisitively at each other as they were both shocked and doubtful. What happened in the primordial land that made all of their bearers disappear? Atop a certain hill, Yuhi anxiously gazed around. Even though she was a fifth-order open heaven realm master, it wasn't easy for her to detect Xianxia among these several tens of thousands of people. Unable to find him, she looked to Zhu Jiuyin and asked, "Have you found young master?" Zhu Jiuyin's expression was extremely dark, and hearing this question, she snorted, "No. I guess that little brat has lost his life." Since Xianxia couldn't immediately leave the primordial land, he must have fallen into danger. She didn't understand, though. Xianxia couldn't be considered weak. In fact, he was undoubtedly the most powerful among all the bearers, so how was it possible that he had lost his life? His death didn't matter to Zhu Jiuyin, but it had ruined her plans. Am I going to be stuck in the grand ancient ruins boundary again? No one knew when the grand ancient ruins boundary would open up again, and even if it did, there might not be a single person who could come in. Guizi Yen comforted Yuhi by saying, "Sir is an extremely lucky man, so I'm sure he'll be fine. Lady Yuhi, please don't worry. Maybe he was held up by something." Hearing that, Zhu Jiuyin sneered. When the primordial land closes, all who are still alive inside it will be forced out. Since Xianxia hasn't appeared, there's no way. As she spoke, she suddenly turned to look in a particular direction as her eyes flashed. For a brief moment, she detected Xianxia's aura before it disappeared. Recalling a certain artifact in Xianxia's possession, Zhu Jiuyin soon figured everything out. Following a loud boom, a surge of energy caused over 1,000 cultivators to lose their lives on the spot. Some divine spirits furiously made a move because they couldn't find their bearers. With no hope to leave the grand ancient ruins boundary, these divine spirits wouldn't care whether these people lived or died, so they went on a killing spree to vent their fury. Fei Yi's burly figure moved across the crowd as he hissed and widened his bloody mouth. There was a horrifying suction coming from his gaping jaws as he continuously swallowed up cultivators. Previously, Chu Huashang was around to stop him from feasting on these cultivators, but now that she was gone, and with no hope to leave this world, he decided to fill his stomach. The place descended into chaos. Several tens of thousands of cultivators were both stunned and horrified. Many people had finally escaped from the primordial land after having gained immense wealth and opportunities. Initially, they thought that they could surge to great heights in the near future, but before their dreams came true, they were slaughtered. Countless figures hurriedly ran away. In just half a cup of tea's time, 30% of the cultivators were killed. 100 kilometers away, Yang Kai turned a terrified gaze towards the slaughter. Fortunately, he had run away earlier. Otherwise, he would have lost his life by now. Pulling his shadowless veil tighter, he thought that if Zhu Jioyin had really left a tracking technique on his body, she should have noticed him by now. Regardless, he couldn't stay in this place. He reckoned that he'd just contact Yuhi at a later time. Half a day later, all the noises behind him died down. Upon entering a certain valley, Yang Kai dispelled the shadowless veil's concealment for a moment before quickly covering himself up again. A moment later, a ray of light was seen rapidly approaching him from the horizon. Seeing that, Yang Kai snorted, knowing that Zhu Jioyin had really left a tracking mark on his body, otherwise she couldn't have found him so quickly. The ray of light was so swift that in the blink of an eye the distance between them had significantly shortened. Yang Kai took off the shadowless veil and revealed himself fully. Narrowing his eyes, he saw 4 figures in that ray of light who were none other than Zhu Jioyin, Yuhi, and the others. However, the next instant, Yang Kai's expression changed drastically as he shouted, "Zhu Jioyin, are you stupid? How could you not know people were following you? If I die, it will be all your fault." Upon finishing his words, he turned around and fled because several rays of light were seen relentlessly chasing after Zhu Jioyin. Among the rays of light, Jin Wu was leading the way while he was followed by Zhu Yan, Xianxia, and several others. There were 7 or 8 divine spirits in total. Fei Yi had turned into a 2-headed man as one of his heads was seen cackling, "Brother Jin Wu, you're indeed clever. How did you find out that something was off with the cheap slut Zhu Jioyin?" Jin Wu snorted. That woman had 3 captives with her. If they became useless, why would she keep them alive? She wouldn't let them survive for no reason. What this king doesn't understand is why the other bearers have gone missing. Why has only this cheap slut's bearer appeared? Xianxia scoffed. "We'll know after we capture and interrogate him," Zhu Yan said. "Since he's the only one out of the dozens of bearers who has appeared, it's likely that the innate spirit fruit is with him. If we capture him, one of us will be able to leave the grand ancient ruins boundary. Let's see who will be able to catch him then." "Oh, that brat is running away pretty quickly. Is he using some kind of space secret technique?" Incredible. Given Yang Kai's cultivation and speed, there was no way he could get rid of the divine spirits, but his space secret technique made it possible for him to stay ahead of them somewhat. Between them, Zhu Jioyin was so mad that she almost spat blood. Certainly, she wanted to secretly contact Yang Kai and obtain the innate spirit fruit. She didn't know what was up with Jin Wu, but as soon as she left, he immediately chased after her and she was unable to get rid of him. Given enough time, she could have attempted to get rid of these annoying fellows. Nevertheless, since the primordial land had closed, it meant that there wasn't much time left for them. That was why she didn't have the time to brush off Jin Wu and the others as she directly chased after Yang Kai. As she approached him, she spoke to him via divine sense, "Smelly brat, stop running. Did you get the innate spirit fruit?" A furious Yang Kai naturally hastened his pace further as he shouted, "Should I wait for death if I don't run? Of course. I obtained the innate spirit fruit. Show me." Zhu Jioyin's voice was trembling. Yang Kai almost couldn't contain the urge to curse. He was trying his best to hide the spirit fruit, but this woman was making him fish it out instead. Nevertheless, she couldn't be blamed for this suggestion. If she couldn't see the spirit fruit, she couldn't be certain whether Yang Kai was telling the truth. If he had obtained it, the coming fight would be worth it. However, if he was lying, she didn't have to keep wasting time. With a dark expression, Yang Kai raised his right hand and revealed the pattern. A puzzled Zhu Jioyin asked, "What is this?" Yang Kai bellowed, "It's the innate spirit fruit." The fruit broke apart and became this. After becoming startled for a moment, Zhu Jioyin soon realized something and exclaimed, "I see. Are you happy now?" Yang Kai said through clenched teeth. He didn't mind showing her the pattern, but the problem was that Jin Wu and the others could also see it. Presently, their gazes sparkled as they had also realized the crux of the matter. They stared fixedly at Yang Kai as their expressions were filled with greed and excitement. "Come close to me. I'll take you away." Zhu Jioyin secretly spoke to him as she suppressed the excitement in her heart. Without turning his head, Yang Kai kept dashing forward. He didn't care that his energy was rapidly depleting. You should get rid of them first, then we'll talk. Following that, Jinwu suddenly yelled, "Brat, whatever Zhu Jiuyin promised you, I can double it. Besides that, if you help this king leave the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary, this king can be your protector for 300 years. Hearing that, Zhu Yan hurriedly countered, "Brat, I'm willing to give you my entire collection and become your protector for 300 years. One of Fei Yi's heads was seen grinning. This king can be your protector for 500 years. All of these divine spirits competed against each other and made very attractive offers. And upon hearing them, Yang Kai was indeed tempted. Nonetheless, to Yang Kai, all of these divine spirits were not as important as Jin Wu. That guy's monster core was of the metal attribute, which was what Yang Kai needed the most right now. If they could come to an agreement, Yang Kai wouldn't have to worry about gathering his metal element power. Apparently, Zhu Jiuyin understood what was on his mind, though. She was aware that Yang Kai needed a metal element treasure because she had helped him look for one before. Unfortunately, she was unable to find one. Worried that Yang Kai would be tempted by Jin Wu's offer, Zhu Jiuyin snorted, "Brat, don't forget that these three people are still in my hands." Before Yang Kai entered the primordial land, Zhu Jiuyin had captured Yu He, Lu Shui, and Guo Ziyan. Unless he didn't care whether they lived or died, he would have to listen to her commands. Lu Shui could be ignored as Yang Kai wasn't that close to her. They came into contact because of the matter regarding Sword Pavilion, and she decided to side with him to seek his protection. That was all. Nevertheless, he could never abandon Yu He and Guo Ziyan. The former had helped him a lot while the latter was extremely loyal to him. Zhu Jiuyin didn't dump them because she had to use them to threaten Yang Kai. By bringing these people with her, she had to expend more energy, and it only served to slow her down. Yang Kai scoffed, "Since I've come to an agreement with you, I won't go back on my word, so you don't have to worry. However, how are we supposed to get rid of them now?" Zhu Jiuyin hurriedly said, "After the primordial land closes, there isn't much time left. A fog will cover the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary at any moment, and when that happens, all of you will have to leave. Stop running and come closer to me." "The entire Grand Ancient's Ruins boundary is closing as well?" Yang Kai was elated upon hearing that, knowing that she wouldn't lie to him at this point. It was no wonder that Zhu Jiuyin was so eager to look for him, even if she had to expose herself. According to her, a fog would cover the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary at any moment. If she couldn't achieve her goal by that time, all her efforts would go to waste. After giving it a thought, Yang Kai slowed down and waited for her to reach him. Seeing that, Jin Wu and the others knew that they were in an unfavorable position. As soon as Zhu Jiuyin and Yang Kai came together, their plan would fall through. At the thought of this, a ferocious glint flashed across Jin Wu's eyes as he bellowed, "Zhu Jiuyin, if this king can't leave the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary, I won't allow you to feel any better. I'll make sure you stay here forever." Upon finishing his words, he widened his mouth and roared, after which a golden light that lit up 100-kilometer radius shot towards Yang Kai. A great sense of danger rose within Yang Kai as his pupils contracted. He had a feeling that he was engulfed in an aura of death. Even though the divine spirits were suppressed in Grand Ancient Ruins boundary, which made sure that they couldn't fully use their strength, this strike was still horrifying. Wherever the golden light passed, heaven and earth collapsed and space warped and tore asunder. What terrified Yang Kai was that Jin Wu's world-shaking strike had shattered the surrounding space, which disrupted the local principles, making it impossible for him to use instantaneous movement. Following a howl, the aura of a divine spirit permeated the air. A gigantic 8-legged spider illusory phantom suddenly appeared behind Zhu Jiuyin. The spider was so massive that it almost covered the entire sky. There was a silver crescent moon on the back of the spider. It was the manifestation of her heavenly moon demon spider true body. At that instant, the entire world seemed to be filled with monster chi. The golden light clashed with the heavenly moon demon spider's manifestation, which then shook and dimmed a little. "Jin Wu, you court death." Zhu Jiuyin was so infuriated that her beautiful facial features contorted. Fortunately, she had reacted quickly just now. Otherwise, Yang Kai would have been killed by that attack. Once that happened, she wouldn't be able to leave the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary, and she could only wait for the next opportunity. However, it never crossed her mind that Jin Wu would be so resolute. As soon as he realized that there was no hope for him, he decided to end Yang Kai's life. Even though he didn't get the opportunity, he wouldn't let someone else have it either. He was basically harming another person's interest without benefiting himself. Jin Wu cackled, "Cheap slut. Kill this king if you can. I'm just afraid that you can't." The competition between them had continued for countless years, so they basically had an irreconcilable grudge between them now. However, both of them were equally matched, so neither of them could gain the upper hand. Seeing as Zhu Jiuyin was furious only pleased Jin Wu further. Then Jin Wu said in a grim voice, "Brothers, what are you waiting for? Stop your wishful thinking. That brat has to save those 3 captives, so there's no way he'll side with any of you." He had practically hit the nail on the head. The other divine spirits sighed and made a move without hesitation. The horrifying attacks came right at Yang Kai, as though the divine spirits were determined to end his life on the spot. All of Yang Kai's hair stood on end as he felt a crawling sensation on his head. Earlier, Jin Wu's attack alone almost sent him to the Yellow Springs. Now that 8 divine spirits had made a move together, there was no way he could survive. Even though Zhu Jiuyin would protect him at all costs, he was still doomed. Without hesitation, Yang Kai hurriedly used his golden crow casts the sun. A great sun immediately leapt from behind him as his aura surged. Hong hong hong. The attacks from the divine spirits collided with Zhu Jiuyin's true body manifestation and caused it to shatter. Her soul shook and blood started leaking from her lips. The great sun was destroyed at the same time, and Yang Kai sprayed out a mouthful of blood as he became battered. Just one round of attacks almost made him unable to endure. Fortunately, Zhu Jiuyin had blocked most of the attacks for him, and he had a strong foundation as well as a sturdy half-dragon body. Otherwise, he would have lost his life by now. Oh, that brat actually survived. Jin Wu was slightly shocked, but that was all. Even though Yang Kai could survive the first round of attacks, there was no way he would still be alive and kicking after the second round struck. Before they could make a move again, though, a severely injured Yang Kai suddenly vanished into thin air. Despite the fact that this place was covered with the divine spirit's divine senses, they had actually lost track of Yang Kai's aura entirely. Jin Wu was stunned as he gawked and asked, "Where's he?" The other divine spirits were both shocked and doubtful, not knowing what had happened. On the other hand, a glint flashed across Zhu Jiuyin's eyes. A blood mist suddenly surged around her as she shot forward in a particular direction like a bolt of lightning. Apparently, she had used a secret technique to significantly increase her speed. "Follow her!" Jin Wu bellowed and relentlessly raced after her. Yang Kai had disappeared for no reason, but as long as they pursued Zhu Jiuyin, they could definitely find him. Meanwhile, Yang Kai suddenly appeared in his home in the Scarlet Star Star City. As soon as he appeared, he sprayed out a mouthful of blood and collapsed to the ground, his aura extremely weak. Still reeling from the shock, he panted heavily. He was fairly powerful now, and he emerged to be the top among the bearers in the spirit-seizing war. Without fighting against the bearers, he was able to convince them to concede defeat and entrust their lives to him. However, compared to those divine spirits, he was still far too weak, to the point that they could kill him at will. Just now, before the divine spirits launched the second round of attacks, he found an opening to flee by making use of a space beacon to return to the Star City. Couldn't be helped. If he remained there, he would have been greeted with even more horrifying attacks. He managed to survive the first round, but Yang Kai wasn't confident that he could do the same again. After he scanned himself with divine sense, his expression darkened. His injuries were truly severe. His physique was battered, and many of his bones were broken. His 5 viscera and 6 organs were shifted heavily, and even his Dao seal was shaking violently. Anyone else with such injuries could only wait for death. Fortunately, Yang Kai's wood element power was condensed from the immortal tree's essence, and his dragon vein was also extremely strong. As long as he wasn't struck by a fatal attack, he could definitely restore himself. With difficulty, he sat up by pressing his hands against the ground. After stuffing many spirit pills into his mouth, he started circulating his strength to adjust his breathing. Just now, before he left, he had told Zhu Jiuyin where he was heading. The Star City of Scarlet Star was pretty far away from the primordial land, and while he could make use of a space beacon and return in the blink of an eye, it would take Zhu Jiuyin at least a day to come here. With one day as a buffer, she might be able to get rid of Jin Wu and the others. The crux of the problem now was whether he had enough time to wait for her arrival. She had said that after the primordial land closed, the grand ancient ruins' rolling fog might appear at any moment. Once that happened, outsiders like Xianxia would be ejected. If she hadn't come back by then, things would become terrible. Therefore, Xianxia had to restore some strength as soon as possible and then go look for her. By doing so, he could save some time. For hours later, Xianxia pushed the door open and left. Even though he was still injured, he was able to move around at the very least. As soon as he passed through the door, he saw two burly figures waiting for him in the yard. They were none other than the Scarlet Flood Dragon and Earth Dragon. After the primordial land opened up, everyone in the Star City left, leaving only these two exotic beasts behind to guard this place. Both of them had been subdued by Xianxia not long after he arrived at the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary, and they had stayed by his side for a long time and been quite loyal to him. When the Scarlet Flood Dragon saw Xianxia, a hint of surprise lit up in its huge eyes. On the other hand, the Earth Dragon directly widened his mouth and squirmed as its saliva scattered everywhere. Xianxia burst into laughter and respectively gave them a dragon blood pill. Then, he patted their heads and said, "Thanks for your company, but I have to leave soon. Take care. I hope that we will meet again one day." These guys had a bit of the Dragon Clan's bloodlines, and Xianxia had been feeding them with dragon blood pills over the years, so they might be able to become divine spirits one day. If there was an opportunity for them, they might be able to leave the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary. Nevertheless, that wasn't likely to happen as their competitors were people like Jin Wu. They already had some spirituality, and after Zhu Jiuyin taught them, they had developed some sentience. Hearing what Xianxia had said, they fell silent. The Scarlet Flood Dragon looked longingly at him as it was unwilling to part with him. The bean-like eyes on the Earth Dragon's smooth-looking head batted as well. "All right, I have to leave now." Without wasting any more time, Xianxia waved his hand and shot into the sky. While the Scarlet Flood Dragon growled in a small voice, the Earth Dragon howled loudly. The next instant, Xianxia returned and sized up the two guys before glancing at the peculiar pattern on the back of his hand. He had figured out the uses of this pattern as soon as he obtained it. Rather than a mere tattoo, it was actually a strange space which could accommodate a divine spirit. The divine spirits were born and bred in this place, so they were marked with the Grand Ancient Ruins boundaries aura. That was why even when the Grand Ancient Ruins rolling fog appeared, which caused it to close, they were still unable to get rid of this place's restrictions. However, if they hid inside the strange space, they could deceive the heavens and avoid the inspection, thus allowing them to break free from the cage called the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary. There was no other way they could achieve this. Even if Xianxia kept the Scarlet Flood Dragon and Earth Dragon inside the small sealed world, they would be intercepted by the world principles here when he was forced to leave. That was why he had never intended to keep them inside the sealed world bead. However, since the pattern on the back of his hand was able to accommodate a divine spirit, it should be all right for him to stuff these two into it as well. He shook the pattern and infused his energy into it, and the next moment, a glow radiated from the back of his hand and engulfed the pair. Following that, these two guys were sucked into that strange space. Xianxia grunted and felt that half of the energy he had just restored was drained. It then dawned upon him that he had to pay a price for activating this pattern. A lot of energy was needed to stuff these two into it, so he wondered how much energy he would have to spend to put Zhu Jiuyin inside. After all, she was a divine spirit who was far stronger than these two. A moment later, Xianxia shot into the sky again and moved in a particular direction. Without any delay, he kept consuming pills to restore his strength on his way to his destination. 2 hours later, while he was moving forward at full speed, he suddenly sensed something and looked around, only to quickly curse, "Damn it." At this moment, a seemingly endless fog was billowing from the void and filling the world. Xianxia found the fog familiar as it was none other than the Grand Ancient Ruins rolling fog. In the past, the entire Star City where Scarlet Star once stood was covered in this fog, whereupon they were sent into the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary. Now that the fog reappeared, it meant that the process was about to be reversed. Since the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary was closing, all the outsiders would be forced out. If Yang Kai couldn't reach Zhu Jiuyin before that, Yu He and the others would be forced to remain here forever. Without the hope to break free from this cage, Zhu Jiuyin would vent her anger on them without a doubt. With no time to spare, Yang Kai ignored the fact that he was seriously injured as he continuously manipulated space principles to charge forward at full speed. 2 hours later, the fog had thickened and was weltering. It seemed that the entire world would be filled with it soon. Yang Kai could clearly feel that there was an aura in the fog that was connected to a different world. He knew that the fog had built a bridge between the outside world and the grand ancient ruins boundary now. However, Zhu Jiuyin was still nowhere in sight, which made him feel anxious. A moment later, Yang Kai's gaze brightened as a ray of light was fast approaching him from the distance. It was none other than Zhu Jiuyin. At this critical moment, they finally reunited. Nevertheless, things were on the gloomy side as Jin Wu and the other divine spirits were still relentlessly pursuing her. Zhu Jiuyin's gaze lit up when she saw Yang Kai as she hastened her pace. Before she even came close to him, she pulled him towards her using a thread of spider silk and continued fleeing. "Why haven't you gotten rid of them yet?" Yang Kai asked with displeasure. Previously, he had made use of a space beacon to return to the Star City. First of all, he had to flee because Jin Wu and the others were determined to end his life. If he had stayed there, he would have fallen into mortal danger. Secondly, he had intended to distract their attention so that Zhu Jiuyin would stand a chance to shake them off. Nonetheless, his efforts apparently yielded no results. Zhu Jiuyin snorted, "This queen is not skilled at fleeing. How am I supposed to get rid of them?" Her face was pale as she spoke. In order to return to the Scarlet Star's Star City as soon as possible, she had no choice but to use a secret technique that sacrificed her blood essence. Besides that, she was attacked by Jin Wu and the others on the way to her destination, so she was badly injured. If she were on her own, she would have fared better. The problem was that she was bringing Yu He and the others with her and had to protect them. Yu He and the others were what allowed her to control Yang Kai, but they had also become her burden while running away and made her suffer a setback. Nevertheless, she wouldn't dare to dump any of them. If Yang Kai became infuriated, she wouldn't be able to achieve her goal. "Brat, we're in trouble." Zhu Jiuyin sported a gloomy expression. She had completed the first step of her plan by reuniting with Yang Kai. Now, she just had to get into the strange space on the back of his hand, and when the boundary closed, she would be able to leave with him. All that took time though, and no matter how quick she was, it would still require a few breaths, but that was enough for Jin Wu and the others to cut Yang Kai into 10,000 pieces. "Can you leave this place just like how you did it previously?" Zhu Jiuyin asked in a grim voice. In a solemn manner, Yang Kai shook his head. "I'm sure you can sense that these guys have sealed off the surrounding space. Apparently, they're worried that I'll use the same trick again." As soon as Yang Kai and Zhu Jiuyin came into contact, Jin Wu and the others surged their auras to seal off a large area of space around them. They had suffered a setback previously, which was why they wouldn't allow Yang Kai to use the same trick. But Yang Kai paused for a moment. "If you're able to break their seal, we can escape. Can you do it?" "I'll give it a try." Zhu Jiuyin nodded solemnly. "Pass them to me," Yang Kai said. With a doubtful look, Zhu Jiuyin shot him a glance. Yang Kai snarled, "We've gone through so much together already. Are you still worried that I'll go back on my word now? Now that the grand ancient ruins rolling fog has appeared, there's not much time left. Who else can I work with other than you?" Zhu Jiuyin's expression turned milder and nodded. "I hope that you are not lying to me." Upon saying that, she released Yu He and the others. After telling them to relax, Yang Kai summoned the 6 Fated Paths bag and stuffed them into it. The 3 of them were open heaven realm masters, so there was no way the small sealed world could accommodate them. He had no choice but to put them inside the 6 Fated Paths bag. Just a moment later, the fog around them thickened as they almost couldn't see the view around them clearly. Upon realizing that they were running out of time, Jin Wu and the other pursuing divine spirits became agitated and their auras flared. While they were preparing to strike out again, they also cursed incessantly at their opponent. Yang Kai took Zhu Jiuyin's wrist and said, "Do it now." Zhu Jiuyin yelled, "Act swiftly." Saying so, a horrifying aura exploded from her body as the heavenly moon demon spider's manifestation reappeared. All 8 of its legs were dancing through the air while the silver moon on its back radiated a blinding glow. Countless threads of spider silk broke through the void and attacked Jin Wu and the others in the next moment. The divine spirits became furious and counterattacked, causing waves of energy to surge and turn the world pale. As Zhu Jiuyin's manifestation came apart under the bombardment, she grunted and sprayed out a mouthful of blood. She was facing 8 divine spirits all on her own, which was why she suffered a total defeat. Even her source had been damaged and her aura, which was originally near its peak, still plummeted significantly. However, after the divine spirits traded moves, a crack appeared in their seal. "Let's go!" Yang Kai's gaze brightened as he activated his space beacon. A light covered Zhu Jiuyin and him before they disappeared. The next instant, 8 attacks whizzed past the place where they had stayed earlier and shattered the void. However, they were nowhere to be seen. Jin Wu and the others reached the place and scanned the surroundings with their divine senses. Discovering nothing, they knew that Yang Kai had fled again. Unable to take it anymore, Jin Wu howled at the sky while the other divine spirits sighed, knowing that Zhu Jiuyin was the winner this time. On Crouching Dragon Mountain, 2 figures abruptly appeared in front of a small log house and collapsed to the ground. Yang Kai had spent 2 years cultivating his spear technique here, so he had naturally left a space beacon in this place. He wouldn't dare to return to the Star City as he was worried that Jin Wu and the others would go there to search for him. So Crouching Dragon Mountain was a natural choice. There was no way Jin Wu and the others were aware of this place, and they didn't have the time to come all the way here to look for him. It could be said that they were completely safe in this place. Yang Kai suddenly felt a soft and tender body under him, and he caught a whiff of a pleasant scent tickling his nose. Raising his head, he saw Zhu Jiuyin staring at him with a pair of ice-cold eyes. Yang Kai flashed a smile at her and rolled away from her. With his limbs spread on the ground, he panted heavily. Zhu Jiuyin remained unmoving as she lay beside Yang Kai. The last strike cost her an immense amount of strength. After trading moves with Jin Wu and the others, she became severely injured, so now she didn't even have the strength to move a finger. After batting her lashes, though, Zhu Jiuyin suddenly started laughing in a pleasant voice. Upon escaping Jin Wu's pursuit, she could achieve her goal and leave the grand ancient ruins boundary. When she reached the outside world, she would definitely become one of the most powerful masters, as she was a divine spirit. "Hand over your entire collection and be my protector for 1,000 years," Yang Kai suddenly said, which made her abruptly choke on her laughter. Suppressing the fury in her heart, Zhu Jiuyin turned her head and glared fiercely at him. "Brat, don't go too far." In a calm manner, Yang Kai looked up at the sky. "You can sleep on it. I'm in no rush." While he could remain calm, there was no way Zhu Jiuyin could. The grand ancient ruins' rolling fog was extremely thick and might send him away at any moment. There wasn't much time for her to ponder on it. If she wanted to leave this prison, she had to agree to Yang Kai's terms. Since Zhu Jiuyin found him and made him a bearer, he had never talked about conditions with her. The other bearers had already come to an agreement with their divine spirits in advance. It wasn't that Yang Kai didn't want to get any benefits, it was just that he was waiting for the last moment when Zhu Jiuyin would not be able to reject him. "Brat, don't forget that it was me who taught you the defying yin-yang 5 elements profound universe heart scripture. It was me who gave you the divine Dao water to strengthen your Dao seal. It was also me who helped you look for a metal element treasure without any complaint," Zhu Jiuyin said through clenched teeth as she had the urge to bite Yang Kai to death. Yang Kai grinned. "Of course I will never forget those favors. But I know you only made such efforts so that I could snatch the opportunity for you to leave, and I've proven that I did not disappoint you, haven't I?" As he spoke, he raised his hand and showed her the pattern on the back of his hand. "As for the metal element treasure, you didn't find one in the end. By the way, Jin Wu's monster core is a metal element treasure. If I had cooperated with him, I would have gained the maximum benefits. However, I didn't do so because I'm a man of my word. Since I've come to an agreement with you, I won't betray you." Zhu Jiuyin had the overwhelming urge to spit in his face when she heard that. If it weren't because she had captured you, he and the others, she knew Yang Kai would have dumped her in an instant and sided with Jin Wu. "Your conditions are too harsh." Zhu Jiuyin suppressed her fury and haggled with him. "Wealth doesn't matter as you can't bring it with you when you pass away." Yang Kai grinned. "Moreover, you're a divine spirit. Once you leave this place, you'll be able to use your full strength and become as powerful as a 7th or 8th order open heaven realm master. What do you need those items for? Zhu Jiuyin snorted. I can give you those things, but 1,000 years is too long. Divine spirits live extremely long lives. I know 1,000 years will pass in a snap of your fingers. Brat, are you sick of living? Do you have any energy left to kill me? Zhu Jiuyin took a deep breath as her plump trembled. 300 years. 1,000 years. 500 years. 1,000 years. 800 years. Zhu Jiuyin screamed hysterically. 1,000 years. Xianxia said through clenched teeth. Oh no. The fog has thickened. I'm worried that I'll need to leave soon. Little bastard. Zhu Jiuyin was utterly incensed. Xianxia replied with a smile, have you agreed to it? Your word carries no weight. I want you to swear on your source. This queen swears she will make you suffer the most excruciating torture after 1,000 years. Zhu Jiuyin bellowed as she widened her mouth and spat out her heavenly moon demon spider's source. The source was a petite 8-legged spider, but its glow had dimmed. Apparently, it was injured. After swearing on her source, Zhu Jiuyin put it back inside her body. It was only then that Xianxia set his mind at ease. Zhu Jiuyin was incredibly powerful, but she could not take an oath sworn on her source lightly. Just like a cultivator swearing on his Tao heart, if there was no special way to render the oath ineffective, they had to honor it. Otherwise, the backlash would be intense. As for 1,000 years later, we'll see if you can still defeat me by then. Xianxia grinned. After everything was settled, Xianxia directly raised the back of his hand and infused his energy into it. Come in. A glow radiated from the pattern and engulfed Zhu Jiuyin before sucking her into the strange space. Instantly, Xianxia's face turned as pale as a white sheet as his forehead was drenched in sweat. Despite the fact that he already knew that it would cost him a lot of energy to put her inside the space, the exhaustion he felt was still beyond his expectation. The next instant, Zhu Jiuyin's furious voice was heard coming from his soul. Why are these two little kids in here as well? It's so cramped. With his limbs spread on the ground, Xianxia couldn't even move a muscle, so he lethargically replied, they're just hitching a free ride. Bear with it for now. Xianxia now realized why there was only one divine spirit who could be the winner in every spirit-seizing war. He didn't feel anything when he stuffed the Scarlet Flood Dragon and Earth Dragon into the special space. But now that he did the same to Zhu Jiuyin, he immediately felt that it was filled to the brim. It was no wonder she said it felt cramped. This special space could only accommodate one divine spirit. There was no room for another one. The breeze was cold and the fog roiled. Xianxia's breathing slowly stabilized. Soon, the entire grand ancient ruins boundary was filled with fog, and he couldn't even see his hands before his face. Felt like a short moment, but it also felt as if many years had passed. When the fog dissipated, Xianxia was startled to hear noises from all around him. Opening his eyes, he realized that he was already floating in the void. Several tens of thousands of cultivators were scattered everywhere as they exclaimed and cried tears of joy, as though they had been reborn. They could hardly contain their excitement. Over 10 years ago, the grand ancient ruins rolling fog swept across an entire star city and engulfed it. More than 10 years later, the same fog sent them back. In the past, there were several 100,000 to over 1 million people in and around the Star City, but now only 20,000 to 30,000 had come out alive. In the past dozen years or so, countless cultivators had lost their lives in the grand ancient ruins boundary, and only a small number of them survived. Xianxia immediately checked on his small sealed world, and upon realizing that the divine medicines that he had obtained were still with him, he breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that the principles in the boundary wouldn't intercept living creatures without flesh and blood bodies. If those 3 divine medicines were intercepted, he would have felt dejected. Pu Bai Xiong and Little Mushroom were not so important, but the gourd vine was a supreme treasure. Inside the small sealed world, the other bearers stayed quietly in a particular area. They were either meditating or looking around curiously. As the master of the small sealed world, Xianxia had imposed a limit on where they could go, so they were unable to see the small sealed world in its entirety. After their initial excitement died down, the surviving cultivators started dispersing. Now that they had escaped unscathed, they wouldn't dare to stay in the same place. It would be terrible if the grand ancient ruins rolling fog returned for some reason. These cultivators bid each other farewell and left in all directions. It took Xianxia a long time before he could restore some of his energy. As a thought flashed through his mind, he released those bearers from the small sealed world. After several dozen people appeared, they became startled for a moment before a pleasantly surprised Suzhen asked, "Have we left?" Xianxia nodded. "Fortunately, I didn't disappoint you all. The grand ancient ruins boundary has closed and we've all left that place safely." Suzhen turned his head and seeing as Xianxia appeared completely battered, he became shocked and said, "Brother Yang, you must have suffered a lot." Although he wasn't sure what Xianxia had gone through, it was apparent that a lot of misfortunes had befallen the latter. After all, so many bearers had entered the primordial land, but only Xianxia had come out in the end, so there was no way those divine spirits would let him off. "Many thanks, Brother Yang." Suzhen solemnly cupped his fists. All the others lightly bowed their heads as well. "Many thanks, Senior Brother Yang." If Xianxia hadn't put them inside the small sealed world as soon as they left the primordial land, their respective divine spirits would have immediately found them. Many of them would have lost their lives because of that. It could be said that Xianxia had saved their lives, so they now owed him a favor. It was a minor matter. Xianxia saluted them back. "I haven't returned to the sect for years, so sect master must be worried about me. I'll take my leave now, Senior Brother Yang. If you ever come to the free and unfettered territory, please pay a visit to our sect. This Ning will personally welcome you." Ning Dao Ran placed one hand on his chest and sincerely invited him. With a smile, Xianxia replied, "I've heard much about the 36 cave heavens and 72 paradises. If there's a chance, I'll definitely pay your sect a visit." After a nod, Ning Dao Ran turned around and left. "I also have to return to my sect. Xianxia, I'll definitely repay your favor in the future, so don't get yourself killed too soon." Lin Feng snorted and cupped his fists before leaving with Ning Dao Ran. "I have to leave as well. Little Brother Yang, come look for me when you're free." Upon finishing her words, Chu Huashang flicked a token at him. "With this token in your possession, you can come to my Yinyang Cave Heaven whenever you want." Xianxia stored the token and nodded his head. "Senior Sister Chu, take care." Following that, Suzhen, Gupan, and the others also left. They were from cave heavens and paradises, so it was expected that they had to leave in a hurry. The opening of the grand ancient ruins boundary was a major event. Moreover, many people had been sucked into the boundary this time, while all the survivors had had their own opportunities. The bearers had especially gained immense benefits, and many of them had condensed 6th order or even 7 order element powers. Therefore, they had to immediately report this matter to their sects. With so many new rising stars, it was a great opportunity for those cave heavens and paradises to recruit them and nurture them into future powerhouses. This matter had to be settled as quickly as possible. If the news was spread around, it would be too late for them to recruit these people. Before Suzhen and Gupan left, they had respectively given Xianxia a token and told him that with them in his possession he could contact them as long as he came to their sects. Xianxia carefully kept them. He had intended to ask Gupan about Zhang Ruoxi, but there were too many people around, so he decided to give up on that idea. In any case, with Gupan's token in his hands, he could go to Langya Paradise when he was free. Following that, all the bearers left one by one. All of them bid Xianxia farewell before leaving. They had gained a lot of benefits in the boundary this time, so they wouldn't dare to remain here lest an accident happened. Some of these bearers were not famous, while some of them were the top disciples in their respective great forces, but regardless, they were all Emperor Realm cultivators who would be easy targets for those who wanted to rob them of their wealth. A while later, Xianxia amassed 20 or 30 tokens in total. He watched them leave, and soon, there was no one around him. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind. This time, he had gained unimaginable benefits from the grand ancient ruins boundary. Besides the immense resources for cultivation, he had also brought back a divine spirit and made her agree to become his protector for 1,000 years. There were also the rewards he had gained in the primordial land, which included 3 divine medicines, a large amount of Tai-E soul-cleansing water, 16 world fruits, and a world tree root. Apart from these tangible benefits, there were also the intangible ones, which included forging friendships with other bearers. These guys had been nurtured by divine spirits in the boundary, and if they could grow to become famous and powerful, they would be able to influence the 3,000 world's affairs. It could be expected that hundreds or thousands of years later, they would all become powerful hegemons. At that instant, Yang Kai felt extremely lucky and pleased that he was part of these changing times. "Brother Yang, do you have a place to go?" A figure approached Yang Kai. It was Ding Yi. As soon as Ding Yi left the boundary, he started gathering his subordinates together. He was the founder of Emperor Heaven. Initially, there were many people in his group, but a lot of them were killed in the primordial land, and many more were slaughtered by the divine spirits at the last moment. This was a loose organization that only banded together to survive in the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary. Now that they had returned to the outside world, many of them were not willing to stay. Presently, there were only a few hundred people around Ding Yi. These people didn't have a sect or background, so after they left the boundary, they had nowhere to go. Upon Ding Yi's calling, they gathered around him again. Hearing that, Yang Kai nodded and then shook his head. Before he was swept into the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary by the strange fog, he was part of First In. However, at that time, Bai Qi was ambushed when he was breaking through to the open heaven realm, so he was almost destined to die. A furious proprietress had sworn to kill Qin Ji and the others in order to avenge him. Over 10 years had passed since those events, so Yang Kai wondered how they had been doing. Ding Yi grinned. "If you have nowhere to go, why not join me?" Yang Kai asked with a smile. "Brother Ding, where are you going?" With a proud expression, Ding Yi replied, "I'm going to look for a spirit province to found a sect and make a name for myself." Brother Ding is a man of ambition. Yang Kai praised him. In the past, Ding Yi didn't have the right to do such a thing. Nevertheless, he had obtained tremendous benefits from the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary, and as long as he could ascend to the open heaven realm, he would be a 5th or 6th order master. That was enough for him to found a sect. "As long as you're willing to help me, I'll definitely achieve my goal. If you decide to come with me, you will be the leader." With a pair of bright eyes, Ding Yi looked excitedly at him. He was fully aware of Yang Kai's capabilities. Knowing that he was inferior to him, he was eager to make him become part of his plan. After giving it a thought, Yang Kai shook his head. "Many thanks for your kind invitation, Brother Ding, but I have other matters to attend to, so I'm afraid that I can't join you." Hearing that, Ding Yi appeared disappointed and sighed. "That's a shame." Nevertheless, he was an optimistic person. So he pulled himself together quickly. "In that case, we'll part ways here. I'm sure we'll meet again. Farewell." "Take care." Yang Kai cupped his fists. "Guys, let's go. Follow this Ding to make a name for ourselves and let the 3,000 worlds tremble beneath our feet." Ha ha ha. Ding Yi swung his arm and proudly led these hundreds of people to leave this place. Yang Kai watched him leave and shook his head with a smile. He appreciated Ding Yi being so ambitious, but he knew the latter might face some trouble in the future. In order to increase his strength, Bai Feng had forced him to condense a 7th-order fire element power, so he might not be able to smoothly ascend to the open heaven realm. When a cultivator condensed their yin, yang, and 5 elements powers, they would naturally strive to look for the ones that were suitable for them rather than the highest-order ones. The limits of their physique, Dao seal, and foundation were invisible, but they would restrict a cultivator's growth. If they condensed elements beyond those limits, it wasn't necessarily a good thing. Although Ding Yi had an excellent aptitude, he was unable to bear the impact of a 7th-order element. As a result, he suffered a backlash after he activated his fire element power. Besides him, there were other bearers who faced similar problems. If they couldn't solve this issue, they would fall into danger when ascending to the open heaven realm. Nevertheless, Yang Kai had no right to interfere in their matters. Next, he released Yu He, Lu Shui, and Guo Ziyan from the 6 Fated Paths bag. Upon learning that they had left the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary and returned to the outside world, they were elated. At this time, no one else was around them as all of the other cultivators were gone. Only Yang Kai and they were left. He took a glance at Yu He and felt that life was full of uncertainties. The reason he came into contact with her was that she was worried that the proprietress would find fault with her, so she decided to hold him hostage. However, none of them could have expected to be engulfed by the Grand Ancient Ruins rolling fog when they were in the Star City. They had spent over 10 years suffering together and supporting each other in the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary, so there were no more grudges between them now. Nonetheless, since they had left the boundary, it was time they parted ways. Realizing that as well, Yuhi no longer felt joyful about leaving the boundary. Hanging her head low, she fiddled with the hem of her clothes and fell silent. Sir, where should we go? Guziyen cupped his fists and asked. Previously he was a great commander of Scarlet Star, but now the Star City was gone, and he had nothing to do with Scarlet Star anymore. Naturally, he wanted to follow Xianxia around. Xianxia fished out a universe chart and took a look at their current location as well as the Star City where First Inn was in. Then, he felt speechless as the inn was far away. In order to return to First Inn, he would have to cross 5 great territories. Without the help of the universe transference law, it would take him a few months to fly over. Then, he turned to look at Yuhi. Do you want to come with me and apologize to her? He had no idea about the relationship between Yuhi and the proprietress, but judging from their conversation over 10 years ago, they knew each other, and they were on pretty good terms prior to that. Something must have happened that made them go against each other. Yuhi even joined forces with Qin Ji and the others to frame the proprietress and almost ruined Bai Qi's ascension. This was a serious matter. Fortunately, with Xianxia's help, Bai Qi got out of the woods and there wasn't any irreversible outcome. If Bai Qi lost his life because of that, the grudges between the proprietress and her would have become irresolvable. Fortunately, it wasn't too late to repair their relationship. Why should I apologize to her? I've done nothing wrong. Yuhi looked away and pouted. You should apologize to her because you're in the wrong. Xianxia sported a grim expression. Since you two were as close as sisters, why did you fall out in the end? You two should sit down and talk it out. The proprietress isn't an unreasonable person. After a moment of silence, Yuhi replied in a hushed voice, Young master, since you've told me to apologize to her, I will do so. The worst that can happen is that she will beat me to death. Xianxia burst into laughter. That won't happen. All right, follow me to see her. If she really wants to beat you up, I'll help you fend off her attacks. Yuhi nodded gently. Following that, Xianxia turned to look at Lu Shui. What about you? Is there any place you can go to? There was a sense of perplexity behind Lu Shui's eyes as she shook her head. Since Sword Pavilion was gone, she was practically homeless. Nevertheless, she was a powerful Fourth-Order Open Heaven Realm Master, so it wasn't difficult for her to support herself. Even if she decided to join a second-class Great Force, she would be warmly welcomed. We're going to a certain Star City. If you don't mind, you can join us, Xianxia suggested. When they reached the Star City, she could go wherever she wanted, and Xianxia wouldn't stop her. Lu Shui replied, N. He didn't bother to ask Guziyen. This guy and another group of people had become his subordinates, so they were supposed to follow him around. First Inn probably couldn't accommodate so many of them, but after they arrived at the Star City, the proprietress could find some jobs for them. These guys were loyal to him, and they had gained immense benefits from the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary. Given enough time, they would grow to be powerful and help him make a name for himself in the 3,000 worlds. After a brief discussion, Xianxia mapped out a route and set off towards the Great Territory where First Inn was located. He decided to go to First Inn to meet up with the proprietress and Bai Qi and then help Guziyen and the others to settle down before returning to the star boundary. He had obtained a world tree root in the primordial land. The amazing root was able to stabilize a world, so he was eager to go back and find out whether it could repair the star boundary. If it was feasible, Xianxia would have no more worries. However, if that didn't work, he had to keep looking for the world tree that Ada had mentioned. He could never set his mind at ease as long as the crisis facing the star boundary wasn't solved. As they flew forward, Yuhi's mind seemed elsewhere. Apparently, she was apprehensive. After all, she had committed a huge mistake, so she was anxious about seeing the proprietress and worried that the latter might not forgive her. Xianxia wasn't in the mood to comfort her as he had expended too much energy in Grand Ancient Ruins boundary. On his way to his destination, he grasped at every chance to restore his energy. Suddenly, Lu Shui spoke to Xianxia via divine sense. Someone is tailing us. A shocked Xianxia turned his head and saw that there was indeed a tiny black dot in the distance behind them. The black dot was too far away, so Xianxia wasn't able to make out that person's face, but he could tell it was an open heaven realm master. A thought flashed through his mind as he realized that someone must have their eyes on him because he was practically the brightest star in the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary. With the suppression of the Grand Ancient Ruins rolling fog in place, Open Heaven Realm Masters were unable to fully use their strength. Therefore, some of them must be displeased that a mere Emperor Realm Junior like him was able to stand peerless. There were rewards to be gained by targeting him. After all, he had gained lots of benefits in the boundary. Besides the income from Scarlet Star, they must be jealous of the rewards he had gotten from his numerous adventures. Benefits moved the world, just like tigers returning to mountains or dragons plunging back into the ocean. These open heaven realm masters became unrestrained after they left the boundary, so it wasn't surprising that some of them had their eyes on Xianxia. Although Xianxia was unafraid, he preferred to avoid trouble for now. As he led the other three to keep changing directions, he intended to get rid of the person behind them. However, that person was relentlessly pursuing them, which made Xianxia furious. A while later, Lu Shui suddenly raised her hand and exclaimed, "Wait a moment! There's something off in front of us." Then, she stared at the front with narrowed eyes. Xianxia scanned the surroundings with his divine sense, but couldn't find anything. This wasn't surprising though, as he was just an Emperor Realm cultivator, so his heritage was no match for that of Lu Shui, who was a fourth-order master. It was expected that she could discover things that he couldn't see. Thus, he turned to look at Yuhi. This woman had been absent-minded all the way, but she was a fifth-order open heaven realm master, so she was much stronger than Lu Shui. Supposedly, if there was something that was amiss, she should be the first one to discover it. Nevertheless, the fact was that without Lu Shui's warning, Xianxia wouldn't even have found out that they had been targeted. Finally, Yuhi came to her senses as her eyes flashed coldly. She scanned the front with her divine sense and stared fixedly at a particular spot. Then, she raised her hand and gently pushed it towards the void. Her attack was soft and light, but following her movement, world force undulated. A layer of ripple swept across the void in front of them, and like a fog that had been uncovered, several dozen people were abruptly revealed. Xianxia swept a glance over their faces and scoffed, "It's you guys!" The people that had blocked their way were none other than those from Scarlet Star. With the head manager Zhao Baichuan at the front, Chun Tianfei, the Ouyang brothers, Lady Qin, and Bei Yushan all present. Apart from these mid-rank masters, the others were all low-rank. There were indeed many people, as over 40 people had gathered. Apparently, the person who had been tailing them was also from Scarlet Star. Xianxia felt his heart sinking as he hurriedly spoke to Zhu Jiuyin. "We've come across some trouble and might need your help." Although he had Yuhi and Lu Shui, who were respectively 5th Order and 4th Order Open Heaven Realm Masters, on his side, the people on the opposing side had greater numbers. What's more, the head manager of Scarlet Star, Zhao Baichuan, was a 5th Order, and the other managers were all in the 4th Order. Besides the fact that there were more people on the opposing side, their collective power was also much stronger. If they got into a fight, those from Scarlet Star were bound to gain the upper hand. Now, Zhu Jiuyin was the only person who could help them win the battle. Given her strength as a divine spirit, as long as she made a single move, these 4th and 5th Order Open Heaven Realm Masters would be easily defeated. Xianxia knew that these people had come all the way here to seek revenge, as he had oppressed Scarlet Star horribly in the past. While he had placed all his hope on Zhu Jiuyin though, she unexpectedly replied, "Run. I can't fight with anyone for now." Xianxia widened his eyes as he asked, "What do you mean?" He regarded Zhu Jiuyin as his trump card, so he hadn't expected to hear such a reply. Zhu Jiuyin said, "First of all, my source has been damaged, so I need time to recuperate. If I fight against others, it will worsen my injuries. Secondly, I was born and raised in the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary, where the world principles are different from those in the outside world. Even if I make a move, I can't use my full strength. I need some time to adjust to the new world principles." "Some time? How long will that be?" Xianxia asked. 3 to 5 months? Maybe 6 months to a year. Perhaps it will take 10 to 20 years. "I'm not sure," Zhu Jiuyin replied solemnly, but her tone suggested that she was taking pleasure in Xianxia's misfortune. Xianxia almost wanted to curse. He was aware that her source had been damaged, as at the most critical moment she fended off the attacks from 8 divine spirits on her own, so there was no way she wasn't harmed in the process. Damage to a divine spirit source was indeed horrifying, so she truly needed time to recuperate. Otherwise, she would be left with some grave concerns. Xianxia wasn't certain whether she really needed time to get used to the new world principles. However, he was in deep trouble, and she would not get off easy if he were to fall here, so she most likely wasn't lying to him. Yang Kai said through clenched teeth, "Don't forget your oath. If I die, you'll end up in a miserable state as well." As Yang Kai's protector, Zhu Jiuyin had a duty to ensure his safety. If something unfortunate happened to him, she would also suffer a backlash. Zhu Jiuyin replied, "That's why I told you to run. Aren't you adept at it?" Their secret conversation lasted only for a moment. On the other hand, Yuhi stared at Zhao Baichuan with a cold face and said grimly, "Head manager, why have you blocked our way?" She was asking the obvious. These people must have some ill intentions for blocking them in this place. At the same time, she secretly spoke to Yang Kai. "I'll hold them up later. You should seize the chance and run." She was a fifth-order Open Heaven Realm Master. Even though she couldn't defeat these people from Scarlet Star, it wouldn't be easy for them to kill her. Without replying to her, Zhao Baichuan gazed dispassionately at Yang Kai as though the latter was an ant. There was an amiable smile on Chen Tianfei's face as he stepped from behind Zhao Baichuan and cupped his fists. "Greetings, foreign elder Yang. Lady Yuhi." He was putting himself in a lower position as though they were still in the grand ancient ruins boundary. Yang Kai replied impassively, "Manager Chen, is something the matter?" Chen Tianfei said, "Not at all. This Chen just wanted to ask where you're going. If you don't mind, why don't you join us? Where are you going?" There was a bitter smile on Chen Tianfei's face. "The Star City has been destroyed, so we're practically homeless right now and don't know where we can go. You are a foreign elder from Scarlet Star, so we're all on the same boat. If there's a good place, please bring us with you so that we can have a place to settle down. We don't want to wander around anymore." Yang Kai didn't show any emotions on his face, but he thought that something was amiss. It was apparent that these guys had ill intentions by blocking his way. However, why didn't they make a move when they were at an advantage? Instead, Chen Tianfei was having a small talk with him, and judging from his expression, it was obvious that he was wary of something. What are they wary of? A thought flashed through Yang Kai's mind and soon realization dawned upon him. They hadn't made a move because they were wary of Zhu Jiuyin. It was a well-known fact that he was a bearer. After all, Zhu Jiuyin had lived in Scarlet Star City for a few years. At that time, Zhao Baichuan had even brought Chen Tianfei and the others to greet her. Now that the grand ancient ruins boundary was closed, they weren't certain whether Yang Kai had brought her out. Even though Zhu Jiuyin was nowhere in sight, they had to be careful. If she was really with Yang Kai, there was no way they could defeat her. That was the reason they were acting so polite yet insincere. So that's why. Upon realizing what was on their minds, Yang Kai relaxed and curled his lips into a smile. "Manager Chen is right. All of you have assisted me greatly over the past few years. As a foreign elder of Scarlet Star, this king will not stand on the sidelines when you're in trouble. Good. If all of you are fine with it, you can come with me." Chen Tianfei's brow twitched when he heard that as he asked probingly, "Foreign elder? Where are you going?" Yang Kai summoned a universe chart and infused his energy into it. A route immediately appeared on the chart, which was the one he had mapped out earlier. He then pointed at a spot and said, "There's a star city here. I'm going there." "A star city?" Chen Tianfei was puzzled. Yang Kai chuckled, "Oh, I've forgotten to tell you. This king is from First Inn, and my proprietress is Madame Lan. I was trapped in the grand ancient ruins boundary in the past. Now that I'm free, I certainly have to look for her." "Madame Lan?" Chen Tianfei was stunned, and even Zhao Baichuan, who was originally calm and collected, narrowed his eyes. Lady Qin asked hesitantly, "Are you talking about Lan Yu Rua?" In the 3,000 worlds, there were not many famous women, but many people had heard of the proprietress before. As a woman, Lady Qin was naturally aware of the matters regarding the proprietress. Yang Kai nodded and stared at her. "Madam, do you know my proprietress as well?" Lady Qin smirked. "I've heard a lot about her." Madame Lan was someone she looked up to greatly. She thought to herself countless times that if she could ever have any achievements that were as great as those of Madame Lan, she would die with no regret. Chen Tianfei said in shock, "Foreign elder? You're from First Inn?" A bashful Yang Kai replied, "It is embarrassing to admit, but I am just a shop hand in the inn." Realizing that the matter was thornier than expected, Chen Tianfei turned to look at Zhao Baichuan. The reason they blocked Yang Kai's way was indeed to kill him. After all, he had snatched countless treasures from Scarlet Star over the years, which was why they were unresigned. Moreover, they knew he had obtained many Yuan magnetic divine stones from the Yuan magnetic mountain, which translated to some immense wealth. They had heard that Yang Kai had collected over a dozen sixth-order Yuan magnetic divine stones. Their star city had been destroyed, so they had suffered tremendous losses. In order to rebuild, they needed a lot of resources, which was why they had their eyes on Yang Kai. However, they had never expected that he was from First In. They were not aware of his background previously. So it wasn't until this moment that they found out he had something to do with First In. It was no wonder that he had such a strong heritage as an Emperor Realm Jr. With guidance from Madame Lan, it wasn't so surprising. "So, are you coming to First In with me?" Yang Kai asked. Zhao Baichuan chuckled. "I've heard a lot about First In. In fact, I had even made some deals with First In the past. The way they do business is always fair. However, what can we do if we head to First In? As far as I'm concerned, it isn't so easy to join them." Yang Kai replied with a smile. "Of course the average person wouldn't be accepted. However, if all of you are willing to start from the lowest positions, I can put in a word for you. You know how to serve customers, right?" While Zhao Baichuan's face twitched, Chun Tianfei let out a hollow laugh. They were mid-rank Open Heaven Realm Masters after all, so there was no way they would serve customers in a lobby. If word got out, they would be too embarrassed to show their faces. Zhao Baichuan resolutely said, "Many thanks for your invitation, foreign elder, but we will have to respectfully decline. We are used to living a free life, so we can't be restrained in any way. We will not be going to First In." "That's a shame." Yang Kai sighed and patted Chun Tianfei's shoulder. "Manager Chun, I thought I could help you get rid of some extra weight if you could join me." The muscles around Chun Tianfei's mouth were stiff as he smiled fawningly. Zhao Baichuan said, "You'll have to pass through several great territories, so the road ahead of you is long and paved with danger. If you don't mind, we're willing to escort you." "Oh, there's no need to go through so much trouble." Yang Kai raised his hand and smiled lightly. "If anyone dares to rob me, I'll make sure that they do not return alive." At that instant, a light flashed across the pattern on the back of his hand, whereupon a divine spirit's aura filled the air. That was the result of Yang Kai's discussion with Zhu Jiuyin. She was unable to make a move, but there was no problem for her to reveal her aura. The expressions of Zhao Baichuan and the others changed drastically as their backs became drenched in cold sweat. Swiftly withdrawing a few steps, Zhao Baichuan cupped his fists. "In that case, we'll not delay foreign elder Yang any further. Farewell." Yang Kai nodded smilingly. "I'm sure we'll meet again." Following that, he led He and the others to pass through the crowd and left in a casual manner. After they were gone, Chun Tianfei wiped the sweat from his forehead as he said fearfully that brat really brought Zhu Jiuyin out. The expressions of the Ouyang brothers were dark, with Ouyang Lei saying, "A divine spirit's aura is indeed terrifying." When the aura descended upon them, he didn't even have the courage to resist, as though he would suffocate and die the next moment if he even tried. Ouyang Bing looked admiringly at Zhao Baichuan. Head manager indeed stands higher and sees further. It was the right choice not to confront him immediately. Otherwise, we would have fallen into a terrible situation right now. Chun Tianfei put on a fawning smile. There's no doubt that head manager is brave and intelligent. Now that that brat has Zhu Jiuyin with him, I'm afraid we can't do anything to him. Then, all of them looked at Zhao Baichuan and waited for his decision. A myriad of expressions came over Zhao Baichuan. There was a glint behind his eyes as he seemed lost in his thoughts. A moment later, he raised his head to look in the direction Yang Kai had left. Then he bellowed, "Damn it! We've been tricked." "What?" Chun Tianfei and the others gazed at him in puzzlement. "That brat was just bluffing. Pursue him now." Zhao Baichuan yelled and charged forward. Not daring to disobey his order, Chun Tianfei and the others hurriedly followed him. Lady Qin asked on the way, "Head manager, why did you say that the brat was bluffing?" Zhao Baichuan snorted. If he weren't bluffing, he wouldn't have mentioned Madame Lan from First In and revealed Zhu Jiuyin's aura. We've dealt with that boy for years now, so how can you not be clear about his temperament yet? If he was able to defeat us, he would have used force right away instead of wasting time talking. Their hearts sank, and upon pondering on it, they realized that it was indeed the case. The first time they came into contact with Xianxia was when he forcefully took control of Scarlet Star and killed two of their managers, Gan Hong and Poison Lady. Then he showcased a peerless power and oppressed others in the Star City as he stole most of Scarlet Star's income and resources. It could be said that it was difficult to get along with such a person, however, Xianxia was polite to them just now. He had never treated them in such a way over the past few years. His behavior suggested that he was diffident. They all agreed with Zhao Baichuan's remark. Xianxia was just bluffing by revealing his relationship with First In and Madame Lan as well as Zhu Jiuyin's aura. A cautious Qin Tianfei said hesitantly, "Head manager, what if he is just playing the pig? How should we deal with him?" Zhao Baichuan snorted. "Whether he was bluffing or feigning weakness, we'll find out after we capture him." At the same time, in a place that was a few thousand kilometers away, Xianxia and the others were flying at full speed. A perplexed Yu he asked, "Young master, why are you running away so quickly?" With a solemn expression, Xianxia replied, "I have not frequently come into contact with Zhao Baichuan, but since he's able to be the leader of Scarlet Star, there's no way he's dumb. What I had said could stun him for a moment, but he would soon figure out everything. When that happens, he'll certainly chase after us. So we'd better quickly run away." A quarter hour later, Yuhi's expression changed as she exclaimed, "Damn it. They're really pursuing us." Xianxia turned his head and saw dozens of lights coming at him at full speed. He was furious because, as the weaker one, he was unable to resist any form of oppression. Then, he stared at Lu Shui. "I'm worried that this matter can't be resolved peacefully. If you don't want to be dragged into this mess, you'd better part ways with me now." A surprised Lu Shui shot him a glance as she had never expected that he'd think of this at this point. Feeling warmth in her heart, she shook her head. "Even if I part ways with you now, I still can't get away from them. By staying here, I can help you fend them off." Without trying to dissuade her again, Xianxia nodded and summoned the 6 Fated Paths bag before covering her and Guiziyan. Knowing his intention, they didn't resist and were put inside the bag. He let Yuhi stay by his side so that they could support one another, then they hurriedly fled. First of all, as a 5th Order Open Heaven Realm Master, Yuhi was swift. Secondly, if something happened, she could help ward off the enemy's attacks. Guiziyan and Lu Shui, who were respectively 2nd and 4th Order Open Heaven Realm Masters, were weaker. They might slow Xianxia down if he brought them with him, so he decided to keep them inside the 6 Fated Paths bag. Behind them, Chen Tianfei's gaze brightened as he yelled, "He was really bluffing. This brat is too cunning." If Xianxia were confident, he wouldn't have quickened his pace upon seeing them, which suggested that he didn't have a way to deal with them. Chen Tianfei even suspected that he hadn't brought Zhu Jiuyin out. The divine spirit's aura they had felt might not necessarily be coming from Zhu Jiuyin. The aura was true, but there were other ways to release it. She might have planted a secret technique on Xianxia prior to this. "He's running pretty fast," Ouyang Lei snorted. His brother, Ouyang Bing, said, "Yuhi is a 5th Order Open Heaven Realm Master, after all. Only head manager can be as swift as her." He had unobtrusively buttered Zhao Baichuan up. A puzzled Lady Qin asked, "Why are 2 people missing?" Chen Tianfei explained, "That brat surnamed Yang has an artifact that can accommodate living creatures. In the past, the Earth Dragon and Scarlet Flood Dragon were released by him all of a sudden using a similar method. They had witnessed the battle in which Xianxia killed Gan Hong and Poison Lady, and although many years had passed, they could still remember the incident vividly. After giving it a thought, they realized that the weaker Guiziyan and Lu Shui must have been put inside that artifact." Zhao Baichuan snorted and raised his hand. Following a flash of light, a thing suddenly appeared and spun around. Soon, it expanded to be a 300-meter-tall mountain. "Bored!" Head manager yelled and shot towards the mountain. Their eyes lit up as they realized that head manager was determined to get Xianxia by using this artifact. Without hesitation, they all leaped towards the mountain. There were many peaks on the mountain, and the several dozen Open Heaven Realm Masters landed on these peaks and infused their energy into the mountain. The head manager stood on the highest peak as he was on top of everything. Then he started forming hand seals to activate a secret technique. The 300-meter mountain immediately charged forward at a speed that was as swift as lightning. Noticing the disturbance behind them, Yuhi turned her head to look and became pale. Zhao Baichuan has summoned the 100 Refinements Peak. How shameless! The 100 Refinements Peak was a flight-type artifact with great defensive and offensive strength. It was a true multi-purpose vessel. This artifact was famous among mid-rank Open Heaven Realm Masters, so it wasn't surprising that Yuhi was aware of it. As a 5th Order Open Heaven Realm Master, she was initially able to drag Yangkai along with her at a speed no less than that of Scarlet Star. After all, there was only one 5th Order Open Heaven Realm Master who was Zhao Baichuan on the opposing side. The other managers were all in the 4th Order, and the rest of them were low-rank Open Heaven Realm Masters. Therefore, the speed at which they moved forward wasn't unified. However, with the 100 Refinements Peak, all of them could infuse their strength into it at the same time. Not only could their movements be unified, but their speed had also significantly increased. Hurriedly, Yuhi summoned her own flight-type artifact, which was a small ship. After she pulled Yangkai towards the ship, they turned into a ray of light and shot forward. Apparently, her flight-type artifact was inferior to that of Zhao Baichuan. Moreover, there were over several dozen Open Heaven Realm Masters powering the 100 Refinements Peak at the same time. The gap between the two sides was rapidly shortening. Initially, there was a distance of several tens of thousands of kilometers between the two parties, but it soon became just a few thousand kilometers and then several hundred kilometers. Zhao Baichuan's voice was heard coming from behind and penetrating the souls of Yang Kai and Yuhi. Wait a moment. Foreign Elder Yang, this Zhao has suddenly thought of something and would like to discuss it with you. Please stop running. The reason he still hadn't confronted him at this point was that he was a prudent man. After all, even though he was confident that his speculation was right, he was still wary of that divine spirit's aura. He had to be prepared for any eventualities. It was because of his prudence that he was able to build a great force in the 3,000 worlds without a powerful background. Otherwise, he would have been killed countless times over by now. Yang Kai was standing on the stern of the ship as he stared coldly at Zhao Baichuan and scoffed, "Head manager, what is it that you want to discuss with me?" Zhao Baichuan said, "This is an important matter that has something to do with the survival of Scarlet Star. So I have to discuss it with you face to face. Please stop for now." Yang Kai secretly cursed at him, knowing that the latter was coveting the treasures he had obtained from the grand ancient ruins boundary. It was just nonsense that the Scarlet Star's survival was at stake. Without showing any emotions on his face though, Yang nodded lightly. "That does sound serious. In that case, I can spare some time to listen." Then, he turned his head and called out to Yuhi, "Stop the ship." Yuhi obeyed his order and slowed down the ship. Seeing that, Zhao Baichuan was both shocked and doubtful. Initially, the 100 Refinements Peak was moving at full speed, but just 10 breaths later, it directly stopped in the void. Yang Kai mocked, "Head manager, did you not want to discuss something with me face to face? Why have you stopped so far away? Were you making a poor joke? Come over to my ship now if the matter is so urgent." Hearing that, Zhao Baichuan was stunned and almost suspected that his speculation was wrong. Was this boy putting on a pretense or luring him into a trap? If his speculation was wrong, he would end up dead after boarding that ship. At that moment, he fell into a dilemma. Yang Kai kept urging him, but seeing as Zhao Baichuan remained unmoving, he bellowed, "Zhao Baichuan, you dare mess with me?" Zhao Baichuan's face twitched, but he remained silent. A resentful Yang Kai said, "This king has important matters to attend to, so I'll not settle the score with you. If this happens again, I'll not let you off so easily." Then, he turned to look at Yuhi. "Let's go." Yuhi was already covered in cold sweat as she hurriedly activated the ship and fled. Secretly, she admired Yang Kai for his audacity. He had repeatedly bluffed, but Zhao Baichuan was still fooled. Then, she reckoned that Zhao Baichuan's intelligence had actually backfired. If this happened to Chun Tianfei and the others, they wouldn't have been easily fooled. It might not necessarily be a good thing to be overthinking. "We've fallen for his trick again." Zhao Baichuan sported a gloomy expression as he watched the ship leave. "I'll crush his bones, pull out his flesh, and skin him alive," he snarled through clenched teeth. Chun Tianfei hurriedly said, "Head manager, please calm yourself. That brat is indeed cunning, however, in the face of absolute power, all schemes are useless. Once we catch him, I will personally bring him before you to allow you to do whatever you want to him." All of them quickly surged their powers and drove the 100 refinements peak forward. The gap between them quickly shortened again. Standing on the stern of the ship, Yang Kai bellowed, "Zhao Baichuan, if you're so eager to go to hell, I can grant your wish. Do you think I don't dare to end your life?" Without replying to him, Zhao Baichuan sent out a beam of light from his peak. Yang Kai shrank his neck and directly snuck into the cabin while Yuhi moved the ship sideways and dodged the horrifying attack. "I can no longer fool him," Yang Kai sighed, knowing that he had reached the limit. Zhao Baichuan was a sly person, so it was impossible to brush him off with some cheap deception without showing him some true power. He had been fooled twice, and the limit had been reached. Now it could only be a life-and-death getaway. Yang Kai was furious as he was hunted down by the divine spirits in the grand ancient ruins boundary. And after he returned to the outside world, he was chased after by those from Scarlet Star. He suddenly felt that most of his life was spent running away from his enemies. The 100 refinements peak could attack as well as defend, and it was also a fast flight-type artifact. There was no doubt that it was a powerful treasure. Now that several dozen open heaven realm masters were standing on it, the mountain had become immensely powerful. While they were racing after Yang Kai, they sent out attacks from their respective peaks, which forced Yuhi to keep dodging. The ship felt as if it was on an ocean in the middle of a thunderstorm, at risk of capsizing at any moment. Seeing that, the cultivators from Scarlet Star were excited. They had confronted and made a move against Yang Kai. If he had any way to counter their attacks, he wouldn't have hidden it. He could only flee and avoid their attacks. In other words, he hadn't brought Zhu Jiuyin out of the boundary. The divine spirit's aura he had released must have been left on him by Zhu Jiuyin previously. With their minds at ease, they infused even more energy into the mountain. As time passed, the distance between both parties continuously shortened. Sensing a ray of light from behind, Yuhi hurriedly drove the ship to avoid it. At the same time, another attack shot in the direction the ship was fleeing, as though it had already predicted it. Yang Kai's vision was immediately filled with a dazzling light. Engulfed by a great sense of danger, he bellowed, "Damn it." On the other hand, Yuhi appeared despondent. The attack was about to reach them, so it was too late for them to dodge it. Judging from the fluctuations of the attack, she and Yang Kai would suffer horribly if they were struck. While she was at a loss, Yang Kai wrapped his arm around her waist, and following that, the world started spinning around them. When she recovered, she realized that she was already somewhere that was several hundred kilometers away. A dazzling light was expanding from a particular spot in the void, and Yuhi felt her heart sinking as her soul shook. At that instant, she realized that the connection between the ship and her was broken off as it was destroyed. In an instant, Yuhi's face turned ashen. She wasn't heartbroken because her artifact was shattered. Even though the artifact was not bad, it wasn't extremely precious. However, their future appeared bleak as their ship was destroyed while they were fleeing. She knew that Yang Kai was an expert in the Tao of space, so he was adept at fleeing, but as they were being hunted down by all of Scarlet Star, space principles might not be useful. In the past, she had chased after Yang Kai and had a taste of his instantaneous movement. However, in the end, he had to surrender without a fight. She was a fifth-order open heaven realm master, and it was the same for Zhao Baichuan. Since she was able to capture Yang Kai at that time, there was no way Zhao Baichuan would fail in his attempt now. Just when she was ready to tell Yang Kai to leave first, so that she would stay here and fend off their attacks, she heard the man sneering, "Since you want to mess with me, I'll gladly accept your challenge. Let's see who will have the last laugh." After that, he manipulated space principles and used instantaneous movement. The next moment, they were already 1,000 kilometers away. Unfortunately, there wasn't even a place where they could hide in this expansive void. Even though they had moved a long distance, those from Scarlet Star soon discovered and pursued them. The 100 refinements peak was unbelievably fast as their gap shortened again. Yuhi said, "Young master, why don't we go to a universe temple? There's one in this great territory, and I've left a universe transference seal there, so I can bring you with me." Universe temples were jointly built by the cave heavens and paradises, and no fights were allowed in any of them. As long as they could enter a universe temple, they would be safe. It was impossible for Zhao Baichuan and the others to rush into a universe temple and make things difficult for them. Yang Kai shook his head. We can't hide forever. Even if we manage to get into a universe temple, it will be impossible for us to leave again. After giving it a thought, you realized that he was right. Even though it was safe in a universe temple, they couldn't hide inside it for eternity. Therefore, she stopped persuading him. Following the instantaneous movement, Xianxia set his mind at ease and let Yuhi drag him along. His pure speed was inferior to that of Yuhi's, so he let her take charge at this point. Soon, the 100 refinements peak was about to reach them again, but once it closed to a certain distance, Xianxia took over and widened the gap with instantaneous movement again. On the 100 refinements peak, Zhao Baichuan stomped his foot while Chen Tianfei cursed. This brat surnamed Yang was truly adept at fleeing. Even though they knew that he was an expert in space principles, it wasn't until this day that they witnessed it. If they couldn't seal off the space around him, they would never be able to stop him. However, Xianxia had always kept a certain minimum distance from them, thus ensuring that they couldn't block his escape. After a few days of pursuit, those from Scarlet Star were still unable to capture him, and there came a moment when Yuhi suddenly exclaimed, "Young master, some of them have left the artifact." Xianxia turned his head and saw a few figures leaping away from the 100 refinements peak. As they flew into different positions, a spirit array beneath their feet started glowing. It was apparently the glow of universe transference law. He couldn't help but snort. "They're going to the universe temple." They too were heading in the direction where the universe temple in this great territory was located. Those from Scarlet Star must be thinking that Xianxia and Yuhi were going to seek refuge there, so they sent some people ahead to block them. However, they had no idea that if Xianxia and Yuhi really wanted to go to the universe temple, they would have done so a long time ago instead of slowly flying over. With that said, it was the outcome Xianxia wanted to see. After those people left, he immediately told Yuhi to move in a different direction. Knowing that they had fallen for Xianxia's tricks again, Zhao Baichuan almost spat blood in rage atop the 100 refinements peak. Nevertheless, it was no use crying over spilt milk. The universe temple those open heaven realm masters had gone to was too far away, so they couldn't rejoin them for some time. A puzzled Chen Tianfei asked, "Where's that brat going?" Zhao Baichuan wasn't certain about it either, but 2 days later, he figured out Xianxia's plan. Xianxia intended to leave this great territory and enter another one. In front of the territory gate, Xianxia summoned his territory shuttle and passed through it with Yuhi, whereupon they arrived at a different great territory. Half an hour later, the 100 refinements peak rushed into the territory gate. But as they looked around, they realized that the void was practically desolate, and Xianxia was nowhere in sight. Look for him at all costs. If we miss this chance, we will never be able to capture him. Zhao Baichuan bellowed. Hurriedly, over 30 figures flew away from the 100 refinements peak and dispersed in all directions. Some of them activated the universe transference law and headed to the universe temple. On the other hand, Zhao Baichuan drove the 100 refinements peak forward and kept searching. After what Xianxia had done, his opponents had no choice but to scatter in different directions. Now, only more than 10 open heaven realm masters were left on the 100 refinements peak. The more people there were to activate this artifact, the faster it could move, so with only a dozen or so left, the artifact's speed had significantly slowed down. Soon, one of Zhao Baichuan's subordinates informed him that they had found Xianxia. Judging from the direction he was heading, it seemed that he was going to another territory gate. Then, Zhao Baichuan took out a universe chart and identified their location. After making a decision, he stored the 100 refinements peak and activated universe transference law with the remaining open heaven realm masters as they headed to the universe temple in this great territory. Soon, they left the universe temple and met with a subordinate. That person immediately said, "Head manager, we've found them. They came to this universe temple earlier and they're now moving in that direction." Without hesitation, Zhao Baichuan summoned the 100 refinements peak again and swung his hand after them. 2 days later, they really saw Xianxia and Yuhi from a distance. Noticing them, Xianxia turned his head as his expression darkened. "They're so relentless. These guys from Scarlet Star were just like maggots on rotting bones, impossible to shake off." Yuhi suggested, "Young master, why don't we go to Small Orchid Palace?" Small Orchid Palace was her force. According to the categorization in the 3000 worlds, with a fifth-order open heaven realm master as its leader, her force could be considered a second-class one. However, the situation was pretty complicated because she was the only open heaven realm master in Small Orchid Palace, and it was just a small spirit province. Other than her, the rest of the people were homeless Emperor realm or below cultivators. There were only several hundred people in Small Orchid Palace, so her force was not really strong. Even though there was a fifth-order open heaven realm master assuming command, it was still quite weak. Therefore, it was just a matter of time before it faded away. With that said, Yuhi had managed Small Orchid Palace for years, so they had a pretty good defensive power. As long as they could arrive, they wouldn't have to be afraid of those from Scarlet Star. Where is Small Orchid Palace? Xianxia asked. After taking out a universe chart, Yuhi infused her energy into it and pointed at a location. Here. Xianxia took a glance and shook his head. It's too far away as we have to pass through 7 great territories. We don't have so much time to spare. Accidents might happen if they were to move through 7 great territories. What should we do then? Yuhi had run out of ideas. Xianxia replied, I know a place, but it will be risky. Initially, he intended to return to Firstin, but now it seemed that this wasn't feasible. Firstin was far away as they had to go through several great territories. In that case, he would rather take a risk. In the worst-case scenario, they would just head to a universe temple to seek refuge. 3 days later, the pair passed through another territory gate and arrived at the next great territory. After just an hour, the 100 Refinements peak reached them again, which went to show that it was incredibly fast. If Xianxia wasn't a master of the Tao of Space, he would have been captured by now. On the other hand, Zhao Baichuan had learned his lesson. He immediately told his subordinates to head to the different territory gates and block them to prevent Xianxia from fleeing again. During the pursuit, the several dozen open heaven realm masters working under him were scattered everywhere, but from time to time, some people would rendezvous with him. Therefore, he could still command over 30 subordinates at this moment. Xianxia had Yuhi, who was a fifth-order open heaven realm master, by his side, so apart from Zhao Baichuan, the rest from Scarlet Star were no match for her. Nevertheless, he had some fourth-order cultivators on his side, so he could deploy them to at least hold her up. At this moment, Chen Tianfei and Lady Qin, the Ouyang brothers, and Bei Yushan had taken some people with them to block the territory gates while Zhao Baichuan was still relentlessly pursuing Xianxia. A few days later, Xianxia and Yuhi suddenly stopped and remained unmoving in the void. Seeing that, Zhao Baichuan frowned as he had no idea what Xianxia was up to. Nevertheless, he was determined to ignore whatever Xianxia had to say. He would capture him first and think about it later. Then, he drove the 100 Refinements peak forward and sneered, Keep running. Why have you stopped? We have no more strength left. Xianxia grinned. Zhao Baichuan snorted. In that case, you'd better surrender without a fight so as to prevent being tortured. Xianxia said, Head manager, if you make a move on me, aren't you worried that Madame Lan will pursue this matter? My proprietress is very protective of her subordinates. If she becomes furious, you will suffer miserably. It was a well-known fact that the proprietress was protective of her subordinates. In the past, when Baichi was disturbed while ascending to the open heaven realm, she became incensed and swore that before she trampled flat the great forces like Golden Rainbow Province that belonged to Qin Ji and the other ambushers, she would never ascend to the 7th Order open heaven realm. This kind of oath showed her determination. If she couldn't follow through, she would never be able to reach the high-rank open heaven realm. At the mention of the proprietress, Zhao Baichuan appeared wary. Although he had been trying to break through to the 6th Order open heaven realm, his heritage was insufficient. Therefore, he was certainly no match for a peak 6th Order open heaven realm master like the proprietress. If she targeted Scarlet Star, they would be doomed. Nevertheless, his hesitation lasted only for a short moment as the immense wealth in Xianxia's possession was too tempting a target. Thus, he scoffed, As long as I kill both of you, Lan Yurua will never find out about it. After a nod, Xianxia replied, So, you want to ruthlessly kill us. How could you tell me to surrender without a fight? Then, are you really such a boy? Zhao Baichuan sneered. As he spoke, he was already just a few hundred kilometers away from Xianxia. He would soon reach the minimum distance from where he could make a move to seal off the space around Yang Kai to prevent him from disappearing again. Just then, Yang Kai grinned at him and waved his hand. Head manager, I shall never forget what you've done to me today and will definitely make you pay for it in the future. Sensing that something was off, Zhao Baochuan hurriedly reached out his hand towards Yang Kai and bellowed. Where do you think you're going? A gigantic hand suddenly appeared and stretched across the void. But as soon as that happened, Yang Kai and he vanished into thin air. Zhao Baochuan quickly looked around and realized that Yang Kai was nowhere in sight. And even after scanning the surroundings with his divine sense, he still couldn't detect Yang Kai's aura. How is this possible? He was stunned. In the past, after Yang Kai snatched the golden crow carcass from the Sun Star, he was chased by several open heaven realm masters. In the end, he made use of a space beacon to escape unscathed. If it weren't because he was ignorant and wasn't aware of the universe transference law, he could have gotten away cleanly. Unfortunately, the proprietress used the universe transference law and returned to first into block Yang Kai, forcing him to use a Mie Meng golden tail feather. Even though Yang Kai was a master of the Tao of space, he could never outrun the 100 refinements peak. Hence, it was just a matter of time before he was captured. However, using a space beacon, he could move to a faraway place in an instant and easily shake off those from Scarlet Star. Look for him. I must have him. Zhao Baochuan bellowed with an extremely gloomy expression. Nevertheless, he wasn't overly worried. Although Yang Kai had disappeared, he was still in this great territory. The other managers had sealed off the territory gates, so it was impossible for Yang Kai to leave this great territory. The people on 100 Refinements Peak leaped forward and searched for Yang Kai. In a faraway location, space principles undulated around a space beacon that was hovering in the void, whereupon two figures appeared out of thin air. A glint flashed across Yang Kai's eyes, but instead of storing the space beacon, he left it. The bead was left behind here when he was fleeing previously. In fact, he had left more than 10 space beacons across this great territory. The space beacons were petite and inconspicuous in this expansive void, so hardly anyone would notice them. He decided to leave it here as he might need it in the future. He looked around and realized that the people from Scarlet Star were nowhere in sight. Knowing that they were safe for now, she asked, Young Master, where are we going now? Will we leave this great territory? Yang Kai shook his head. We can't do that. Chun Tianfei and the others were missing. If I'm not mistaken, they must have headed to the territory gates. If we want to leave, we'll have to confront them. You're indeed powerful, but there are more people on their side, so you might not be able to get rid of them quickly enough. It's like walking right into the trap if we go to a territory gate. After a pause, he asked, Have you refined the thing that I gave you? There was a piece of jade in Yuhi's hand that she was continuously refining and studying. Hearing that, she replied, We didn't have much time to spare, so I've only managed to refine 10% of it. 10%. Yang Kai gave it a thought. It's good enough. Young Master, is this the array jade of a grand array? Yuhi asked in puzzlement. While they were fleeing previously, Yang Kai suddenly passed this jade to her and told her to do her best to refine it. Although Yuhi didn't understand why, she didn't ask any questions as she just had to do it. However, as she refined the jade, she realized that it was a token of a grand array. It was just like the master token of the grand array in Small Orchid Palace. She had never heard that Yang Kai had something to do with any great force. Although he was from First Inn, it was impossible that he could keep the array jade of the inn. The proprietress was the only person who was qualified to hold such a thing. Yang Kai replied with a smile, Do you know which great territory this is? Not knowing the answer, Yuhi fished out a universe chart and took a look, whereupon a realization dawned upon her. 7 Wonder Territory. The 3,000 worlds was made up of countless great territories. And in any great territory there were numerous forces of different sizes. Generally, if a second-class great force existed in a great territory, that territory would be named after that great force. It was just like the great territories where those cave heavens and paradises were established. Free and Unfettered Paradise was located in Free and Unfettered Territory, while Inyang Cave Heaven was located in Inyang Territory. There was a second-class great force called 7 Wonders Land in this great territory, so it was naturally named 7 Wonder Territory. Those great territories without any second-class great force were usually nameless and only had identifiers like D9 territory, C17 territory, and so on. Yes, we're in Seven Wonder territory, Xianxia said with some reminiscence. A thought flashed through Yuhi's mind as she covered her lips and said in shock, "Young master, is this jade the Grand Array token of Seven Wonders Land?" The reason she had this speculation was that she could feel that this token was fairly powerful, which meant it should belong to a second-class great force. Nevertheless, how did Xianxia obtain the Grand Array token of Seven Wonders Land? Xianxia guffawed. This is exactly the Grand Array token of Seven Wonders Land. With this thing in our possession, we can sneak into Seven Wonders Land and hide for a while. If those guys from Scarlet Star can't find us, they'll eventually leave. A startled Yu, he looked dazedly at the jade in her hand and became speechless. This was indeed the Array Jade of Seven Wonders Land. However, she still didn't understand. Such a precious item was normally in the sole possession of the leader of a great force. So why was it in Xianxia's hands? As far as she was concerned, the leader of Seven Wonders Land was a fifth-order open heaven realm master called Qi Chao Heavenly Monarch. It wasn't easy to deal with him as he was just as powerful as Yuhi. A puzzled Yuhi asked, "Young master, how did you obtain this?" After identifying the direction, Xianxia replied, "It's a long story. I'll explain it to you on the way." Upon hearing Xianxia's explanation, Yuhi learned that when he first arrived in the outer universe, he was tricked by Duan Hai, who was the venerable protector of Seven Wonders Land's fire spirit land, and abducted to become a worker. After living in that place for some time, Xianxia was ordered to hunt down a man called Fang Tai. It was then he came across an old man called Su Huang, who was deeply connected to Seven Wonders Land. Xianxia speculated that Seven Wonders Land originally belonged to Su Huang, and for some reason Qi Chao managed to snatch it from him. After his territory was taken away from him, Su Huang was determined to get his revenge. The Six Fated Paths bag was his treasure. At that time, Su Huang planted an exotic ancient insect called the Soaring Black Centipede in Xianxia's Dao Seal, and threatened the latter to bring him into Seven Wonders Land using the Six Fated Paths bag. Su Huang was the original owner of Seven Wonders Land, so he naturally possessed the Grand Array token. Secretly, he stayed there and took control of the Grand Array. Before he achieved his goal, though, his plan was unexpectedly exposed. Left with no choice, he was forced to confront all the Open Heaven Realm Masters of Seven Wonders Land before he was fully prepared. The battle shook the world and dyed the rivers red with blood. Several venerable protectors of Seven Wonders Land were killed. Xianxia knew at least two of those venerables who died. The venerable of Water Spirit Land passed away right in front of Xianxia, who then snatched away the former space ring. It was the reason he had so many open heaven pills to stay in first in the past. The venerable protector of Fire Spirit Land, Duan Hai, was also killed while Qi Chao Heavenly Monarch was seriously injured. During the battle, gaps started appearing on the Grand Defense Array of Seven Wonders Land, allowing many unwilling workers to flee from that place. It was also the time when Xianxia seized the chance and escaped. At that time, he had also brought Fang Bai Qi, Diayu, and Ah Sun with him. Subsequently, he helped ruler of the Dawn Great General look for his mother, checked into First Inn, explored the Sun Star, then snatched the Golden Crow carcass. Seven Wonders Land was the first great force Xianxia came into contact with after he arrived at the 3,000 Worlds. However, he wasn't fond of this great force at all. If it weren't because Su Huang was accidentally exposed and forced to make a move, Xianxia's element power would have been taken away by Duan Hai. While Xianxia was fleeing, the severely injured Su Huang chased after him. With his last breath, he passed this Array Jade to Xianxia and told him to get revenge for him by taking back Seven Wonders Land. Xianxia didn't dare to reject him, so he took the jade. Following that, Su Huang passed away and Xianxia buried his remains in the small sealed world. Certainly, Xianxia wouldn't seriously seek revenge for Su Huang. He had indeed suffered a lot of setbacks in Seven Wonders Land, but he eventually escaped unscathed. When he became powerful enough in the future, he could come back here and settle the score with them. However, before that happened, he never thought about returning to Seven Wonders Land, and it was completely beyond his expectations that this jade would be useful to him so soon. While Xianxia was calmly narrating his story, Yuhi became incensed upon hearing it and snarled, How can those bastards abduct newcomers to the 3,000 worlds and enslave them? This is absolutely unforgivable. Such a great force doesn't need to exist at all. Young master, don't worry. I'll settle this score with them on your behalf. Yang Kai chuckled, we don't necessarily have to do it now. Let's see what the heavens have arranged for us. The speed at which they were moving forward was slow, as they had to conceal themselves. The several dozen open heaven realm masters of Scarlet Star were scattered across this great territory. So Yang Kai and Yuhi might come across them at any moment. That was why they had to be careful. Fortunately, it had been smooth sailing for them. A few days later, a fog bank suddenly appeared in the void in front of them. The fog was so thick that one couldn't even penetrate it with their divine sense. They finally arrived at Seven Wonders Land. Respectively, they used a secret technique to conceal themselves before stealthily approaching the fog. Yuhi was a fifth-order open heaven realm master, so her concealment methods were naturally extraordinary. Unless the other party was as powerful as she was, it would be difficult to notice her. On the other hand, even though Yang Kai was weaker, he had the shadowless veil, which could deceive the senses of anyone below the mid-rank, so his whereabouts were not easily exposed. As they approached the fog, Yang Kai could see that it was roiling like a large gray storm cloud. Nevertheless, there were many obviously weaker patches in the fog. Yang Kai knew that Su Huang must have caused some catastrophic damage to Seven Wonders Land previously. These weaker parts in the fog were the vulnerable spots of Seven Wonders Land's grand array. More than 10 years had passed, but it wasn't easy to repair these flaws, not to mention that Qi Chao Heavenly Monarch was still recuperating. Therefore, he didn't have much energy to deal with this issue. Yang Kai finally set his mind at ease. Although the Jade was the grand array control token of Seven Wonders Land, Yuhi had only managed to refine 10% of it. Initially, he was worried that they might not be able to sneak into this place, but now it seemed that there was no problem. Without the need for Yang Kai to say anything, Yuhi flew towards one of the weak spots, and after observing it for some time, she spoke to him via divine sense. Young master, I am confident in bringing you in, but I'm not sure whether we'll be exposed after we enter. If someone sees us, we'll have to leave immediately. I understand. Let's get started. Yang Kai nodded. They were already hunted down by those from Scarlet Star. In the worst-case scenario, they just had to seek refuge in the local universe temple. Yuhi activated the Jade's power and sent a ray of light forward. The thin layer of fog faltered and separated to the sides, revealing a passageway that led to the inside. Yang Kai and Yuhi traded glances and dashed into it in succession without hesitation. After they were gone, the fog closed and appeared normal again. A moment later, they snuck into Seven Wonders Land. The process was surprisingly easy. Not daring to make any rash moves, they hurriedly concealed their figures and auras, then remained in place for some time. An incense stick later, seeing as there was no movement in Seven Wonders Land, Yang Kai could finally confirm that they hadn't alerted anyone. After giving it a thought, he realized that it wasn't so surprising. Over 10 years ago, Su Huang had made a scene and caused many weaknesses to appear in the Grand Array. On the other hand, Yuhi had refined 10% of the Jade's power, so they were able to get in without alerting anyone. If Qi Chao Heavenly Monarch remained vigilant at all times, he could have discovered them. However, Yang Kai reckoned that he was still recuperating. In the past, Su Huang told him that Qi Chao was severely injured and it would take him years to recuperate. Looking around, Yang Kai realized that the superficial traces of the great battle had been cleaned up already. Seven Wonders Land was expansive, with 7 spirit provinces. It was because of these 7 spirit provinces that this place was called Seven Wonders Land. All 7 spirit provinces were special as each one of them was rich in a different element. Yin, Yang, and the 5 elements were found in the same place, and fruit trees of each element were grown in Seven Wonders Land. These spirit fruits were the main ingredients for refining open heaven pills. Relying on this source of income, Seven Wonders Land were able to gain a footing in the 3,000 worlds. At this moment, many cultivators were flying through the air as they were heading to a place that was hovering in the sky above Seven Wonders Land. That was the shopping district for the workers. Is this the time when the shopping district opens every month? After a moment of observation, Yang Kai fell into his thoughts. The shopping district was built on a small spirit province fragment that Xianxia had supposedly moved here long ago. Every month, this shopping district would be open for 3 days, and the workers from Seven Wonders Land would use this opportunity to communicate and trade with each other as well as the disciples of the sect. Back then, Xianxia bought a third-order metal element material, the stainless golden dew, in this place and gave it to Dieu. When he arrived in the 3,000 worlds for the first time, it was extremely difficult for him to earn open heaven pills. Now, he had over 1 billion pills in his possession. He couldn't help thinking that many things had changed drastically in the past 10 years. Xianxia was quite familiar with this shopping district. After all, he had been to this place many times, and his destination this time was actually the universe fragment where this shopping district was located. Besides Xianxia, Heavenly Monarch, there were also several venerable protectors in Seven Wonders Land. So it wasn't safe for he and him to hide in this place. However, the shopping district was different. Most of the people gathering in this place were workers, and the real disciples of Seven Wonders Land would rarely come here. Therefore, they didn't have to worry that their whereabouts would be exposed in this place. As such, Xianxia secretly spoke to he before following the others. Soon, they landed on the universe fragment. This universe fragment wasn't big, but it couldn't be considered small either. The shopping district was just a small part of this place, while everywhere else was just barren and undeveloped. Xianxia and he found a quiet place and dug a cave for themselves before hiding inside it. It was then Xianxia breathed a sigh of relief as they could finally stop fleeing. Now, they just had to stay here and wait for those from Scarlet Star to give up before looking for a chance to leave. Just then, a sense of fatigue came over Xianxia. This couldn't be helped. Since the closure of the primordial land, he had been on the run. First, he was hunted down by the divine spirits as his life was hanging by a thread. Now, he was pursued by those from Scarlet Star, which caused him to be battered. He secretly swore that when he became an open heaven realm master in the future, he would raise Scarlet Star to the ground and let Zhao Baichuan know the consequences of offending him. Then, he sent his divine sense into the special space on the back of his hand. He wanted to ask Zhu Jiuyin how she was doing, but he was surprised to see that she had fallen into a deep sleep. He knew that she was in urgent need of recuperation as her source had been damaged, otherwise she wouldn't have fallen into such a state. To any divine spirit, their source was their foundation, just like how a Dao seal was to a cultivator. As her source was damaged, it was difficult for her to restore it, and she would need to spend a long time healing. Then he turned to look at Yuhi and became somewhat puzzled. Why are you still refining this jade? Presently, Yuhi was seated cross-legged with the jade firmly held in her hand as she was focused on refining it. Some time ago, he passed this jade to Yuhi because her cultivation was much greater than his, so it would be quicker for her to refine it than him. This proved to be the correct decision. If Xianxia had been the one to refine it over the past few days, he wouldn't have been able to break through the Grand Array and sneak into this place. Now that they were inside, though, there wasn't a need to keep refining the jade. Yuhi opened her eyes and asked, "Young master, don't you want the Seven Wonders land?" Upon hearing that, Xianxia became startled for a moment before realizing what she meant. Bursting into laughter, he shook his head. "Even if you fully refine this jade and take control of the Grand Array, it won't be easy to snatch Seven Wonders land. In the past, Su Huang was also a fifth-order open heaven realm master, equal in strength to Yuhi. What's more, he was the original owner of Seven Wonders Land, so he knew this place better than anyone. By making use of the jade, he took control of the Grand Array but still fell into a life-and-death battle with Xianxia, Heavenly Monarch, and the Venerable Protectors. In the end, he lost his life instead of achieving his goal. Therefore, even if Yuhi fully refined this jade, she wouldn't stand a chance to snatch this place from Xianxia. Then he nodded and spoke in a different tone. "You can do whatever you want. Anyway, it's better to refine it as much as possible." Presently, it was safe for them to hide in this place, but they couldn't guarantee that no one would discover them. If that happened, they could gain an advantage if Yuhi had further refined the jade. Yuhi nodded her head and focused on refining it again. Without speaking further, Xianxia closed his eyes and adjusted his breathing to restore his strength. Time slowly went by. In the void, standing on the 100 Refinements peak, Zhao Baichuan sported an extremely dark expression. According to the information gathered by his subordinates, there were no leads that could help them find Xianxia, which infuriated him. All of them had spent the past 10+ years in the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary, but the biggest winner was undoubtedly Yang Kai. On the other hand, the Scarlet Star was second. Although Yang Kai had unashamedly taken 70% of Scarlet Star's income and stuffed it into his own pocket, they had also made use of Yang Kai's fame and power to develop in the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary and amass immense wealth and subordinates. There were 3 great forces in the former Star City, which were Sword Pavilion, Thunder Light, and Scarlet Star. Initially, Scarlet Star was ranked at the bottom, but because they managed to get Yang Kai to side with them, they were spared from annihilation and instead rose rapidly in the face of adversity. On the contrary, Sword Pavilion and Thunder Light were gone for good. However, it was one thing when they were in the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary, and it was another thing after they left. In the boundary, Zhao Baichuan was willing to work under Yang Kai because the latter had the support of Zhu Jiyan, and Yang Kai had overwhelming power in that place. However, in the outside world, there was no suppression from the Grand Ancient Ruins rolling fog, so he no longer had any regard for Yang Kai. Recalling the fact that Yang Kai had snatched 70% of their income, Zhao Baichuan could simply not tolerate it. 30% of the income was already a tremendous amount of wealth, not to mention 70%. If he could kill Yang Kai and get that wealth back, the future for Scarlet Star would be bright, and he had the confidence to reach the 6th Order Open Heaven realm within 10 years. Unfortunately, that brat had fled. Even though he had deployed dozens of Open Heaven realm masters and used the 100 Refinements Peak, they were still unable to capture him. The territory gates had been sealed off, so he was certain that Yang Kai was still in this great territory. However, he had no idea where he was. Over the next few days, the smaller great forces in Seven Wonder Territory suffered miserably. In this great territory, Seven Wonder Territory wasn't the only great force. There were other, weaker forces as well as many universe worlds. In order to capture Yang Kai, those from Scarlet Star acted recklessly. There were a lot of Open Heaven Realm Masters on their side, and a 5th Order Open Heaven Realm Master like Zhao Baichuan was assuming command. Therefore, even though those from the smaller great forces were incensed, they wouldn't dare to criticize those from Scarlet Star. They had no choice but to let them search around their headquarters freely. Since the arrival of those from Scarlet Star, Seven Wonder Territory had fallen into a horrible state. Zhao Baichuan turned to Chen Tianfei and asked in a grim voice, "Haven't you found him yet?" Sensing the former's suppressed fury, Chen Tianfei brushed away the cold sweat on his forehead and replied, "Not yet. But don't worry, head manager. That brat will never be able to escape." The territory gates were still blockaded, so Yang Kai would have to confront them in order to leave this great territory. Humph. Zhao Baichuan snorted. This king knows that he can't flee, but what if he keeps hiding? How are we supposed to find him? With a bitter expression, Chen Tianfei said, "Head manager, it isn't that we haven't done our best, but we're currently lacking manpower." In order to capture Yang Kai, they had passed through several great territories. Zhao Baichuan had only brought several dozen Open Heaven Realm Masters with him, while most people from Scarlet Star were still heading to this place. It would take them a month or two to arrive at this great territory at best. With only several dozen Open Heaven Realm Masters, it was akin to looking for a needle in a haystack if they wanted to find Yang Kai. Upon that realization, Zhao Baichuan furrowed his brow. After observing his expression for a bit, Chen Tianfei said, "Head manager, the only solution for us now is to borrow some people." "Borrow some people? What do you mean?" Zhao Baichuan looked over at him. Chen Tianfei chuckled. "To be honest with you, there's a great force called Seven Wonders Land in this great territory led by Qi Qiao, Heavenly Monarch. I'm on fairly good terms with him, so if you don't mind, we can head to Seven Wonders Land first. I'll try to borrow some people from him. If he's willing to help, things will become much easier." Qi Qiao, Heavenly Monarch? Zhao Baichuan seemed to have recalled something. Is he the one who came to our Star City to negotiate some business deals with us a few years ago? He was aware of Qi Qiao's existence, but in the past, he had been focused on breaking through to the 6th Order Open Heaven realm, so he had never met him. While he was cultivating in seclusion, all the matters in Scarlet Star were handled by Chen Tianfei. It was during this period of time that Chen Tianfei came into contact with Qi Qiao, and he subsequently informed Zhao Baichuan about it. That was how Zhao Baichuan heard about Qi Qiao. Him. Qin Tianfei nodded. Qi Qiao Heavenly Monarch is fairly powerful as he's a 5th Order Open Heaven Realm Master. Zhao Baichuan nodded. He was also a 5th Order Open Heaven Realm Master, and as the master of a great force, Qi Qiao must be a respectable figure. Thus he asked, "Are you confident that he'll lend us some people?" Chen Tianfei chuckled, "I'm fairly confident, but I'm sure there will be a price to pay. Moreover, head manager, you'll have to personally meet him." "I don't mind paying a small price." Zhao Baichuan nodded. Since they wanted to borrow people, they naturally had to offer compensation. As long as they could find Yang Kai, the price would be worth it. "Let's head to Seven Wonders Land now." It was then that Chen Tianfei pointed out the direction for him, whereupon the 100 Refinements Peak shot towards Seven Wonders Land. Just one day later, Chen Tianfei pointed at the fog in front of them and said, "Head manager, we've arrived at our destination." Zhao Baichuan took a glance and saw that the fog was weltering, but he was unable to see through it. He couldn't help but nod and say, "This is indeed an extraordinarily great force." Chen Tianfei chuckled, "It's my first time coming to this place as well. Head manager, please wait a moment. I'll send a message to Qi Qiao Heavenly Monarch and tell him to open the portal." Zhao Baichuan simply nodded. It was then that Chen Tianfei fished out a faith token and infused his divine sense into it. In the past, Qi Qiao Heavenly Monarch had repeatedly visited the Star City and did some business deals with those from Scarlet Star, which was why they had traded means to contact each other. However, it was always Qi Qiao who looked for him. Chen Tianfei had never expected that he'd need to seek his help one day. Right after he sent a message, he saw the fog rolling violently. The next instant, a rumbling sound was heard as an extremely thick bolt of lightning shot out from the fog and reached them in the blink of an eye. Chen Tianfei was stunned as he narrowed his eyes at the dazzling light. With a grim expression, Zhao Baichuan yelled, "Open!" Instantly, the 100 Refinements Peak trembled violently as a rich earth element power gushed out of it and formed a layer of airtight protection around the artifact. A deafening sound was heard as the lightning bolt struck the 100 Refinements Peak and caused it to tremble. Such a powerful attack! Zhao Baichuan turned solemn. Even the 100 Refinements Peak couldn't withstand such an attack if it was repeatedly struck. As soon as he finished speaking, a few rays of lightning shot out from the fog. At the same time, someone from Seven Wonders Land bellowed, "You Xiao Shan, do you think this king is really afraid of you? Do you seriously think you're powerful enough to gobble up my Seven Wonders Land?" Chen Tianfei was dumbfounded. They were immediately attacked after they arrived at this place, so they had no idea what was going on. And who was Yu Xiao Shan? Rumbling sounds were continuously heard. Wherever the beams of lightning went, the void broke apart. The 100 Refinements Peak could attack as well as defend. Zhao Baichuan had spent a lot of time and resources to have it refined, so it was a pretty extraordinary artifact. As the beams of lightning were about to strike, the 100 Refinements Peak hurriedly shrunk and moved around to dodge the barrage. Even so, it was still struck by another bolt and the entire mountain shook as one of the peaks collapsed. "Chen Tianfei!" Zhao Baichuan yelled and glared at him. He was heartbroken at the fact that the 100 Refinements Peak had been damaged. Although this artifact was superb, it couldn't possibly withstand the power of the Grand Array for long. Chen Tianfei's forehead was drenched in cold sweat and hurriedly exclaimed, "Heavenly Monarch, please stop. It is Chen Tianfei from Scarlet Star, not Yu Xiao Shan. Are you mistaken?" If he hadn't heard it wrong, the person shouting from Seven Wonders Land just now was Qi Qiao Heavenly Monarch himself. After he finished speaking, the lightning behind the fog seemed to have gotten stuck as a person said in surprise, "Chen Tianfei? Fatty Chen Tian from Scarlet Star." Torn between tears and laughter, Chen Tianfei quickly leaped away from the 100 Refinements Peak and revealed his chubby figure. "Who else can I be? Heavenly Monarch, please take a proper look." A moment later, a surprised voice was heard coming from behind the fog. "So it is really Brother Chen." It was hard not to recognize Chen Tianfei. There were trillions of humans in the 3,000 worlds, but it was rare to find someone as robust as Chen Tianfei. However, the Heavenly Monarch soon snorted, "Brother Chen, why are you here? Who is on that mountain?" Hurriedly, Chen Tianfei replied, "Heavenly Monarch, please hear me out. The reason this Chen has come all the way here is that he needs to request your assistance with a small matter." This mountain is the 100 Refinements Peak, which belongs to my Scarlet Star. The person on the mountain is the head manager of Scarlet Star. Then he turned his head and nodded at Zhao Baichuan. With a gloomy expression, Zhao Baichuan kept the 100 Refinements Peaks and revealed his figure. Besides him, there were also more than 10 low-rank Open Heaven Realm Masters. Head manager of Scarlet Star? Qi Qiao was evidently shocked. I've heard so much about you. He had been to the Star City on Scarlet Star several times, but he had never met Zhao Baichuan in person before. Knowing that the head manager had been cultivating in seclusion to break through to the Sixth Order Open Heaven Realm, he didn't mind this. Since Zhao Baichuan had stopped cultivating in seclusion, did it mean that he had ascended to the Sixth Order Open Heaven Realm? With this thought in mind, Qi Qiao's tone became more polite. Zhao Baichuan sported a cold expression. He was in a terrible mood because he was attacked for no reason. Moreover, he had been fuming with rage after what Xianxia had done. Therefore, he only nodded and said impassively, "Heavenly Monarch, I've heard much about you too." Qi Qiao said, "Brother Chun, why are all of you here today?" Chun Tianfei replied, "We really need your help. Can we come in to talk with you?" Behind the fog, Qi Qiao Heavenly Monarch fell silent for a moment before saying, "Please." Following that, the fog rolled to the sides and revealed a passageway. Chen Tianfei breathed a sigh of relief and turned to look inquisitively at Zhao Baichuan. Upon getting his approval, Chun Tianfei put on a smile and cupped his fists. "Pardon our disturbance." Then, he led the way while Zhao Baichuan shuffled forward with the other Open Heaven Realm Masters following him. Soon, they entered Seven Wonders Land and saw a group of Open Heaven Realm Masters. The person at the front appeared to be a man in his 40s who looked handsome and elegant. With a friendly smile, Chun Tianfei cupped his fists at this middle-aged man. "Greetings, Heavenly Monarch." This person was none other than the owner of Seven Wonders Land, Qi Qiao Heavenly Monarch. Following a laugh, Qi Qiao Heavenly Monarch walked over and grabbed Chun Tianfei's shoulders. "We haven't met for years, but you're still so healthy and energetic. It pleases me greatly." There was a bitter smile on Chun Tianfei's face. "Many thanks for your compliment, Heavenly Monarch. For the past few years." "Hi. It's a long story. Please allow me to introduce you to Head Manager Zhao from Scarlet Star." "Head Manager. This is Qi Qiao Heavenly Monarch." Qi Qiao cupped his fists. "Head Manager Zhao." Zhao Baichuan saluted him in return. "Greetings." Seeing as Zhao Baichuan appeared displeased, Qi Qiao knew that the other party was still upset over what just happened. So he quickly explained, "Head Manager Zhao, please pardon my earlier offense. I didn't intend to attack you just now. One of our enemies has been harassing us recently, so when a disciple told me that a strong cultivator had come to this place, I thought that the thug had returned. It's just a misunderstanding. Please forgive me." Upon hearing that, Zhao Baichuan was stunned. "Your enemies have been harassing you?" It was then he realized why Qi Qiao attacked him as soon as he arrived. That was because he was mistaken as an enemy. After learning the reason behind it, his displeasure decreased noticeably. A shocked Chun Tianfei said, "Who would have the guts to make a fuss here?" "Hi. It's a long story." Qi Qiao sighed. His expression and tone were similar to those of Chun Tianfei earlier. Zhao Baichuan arched his brow. "Heavenly Monarch, it seems that you're injured." Even though Qi Qiao was a Fifth Order Open Heaven Realm Master, his aura was a little unstable. It was the same for the 3 Fourth Order Open Heaven Realm Masters behind him. A furious Qi Qiao Heavenly Monarch said, "I was injured a few years ago, but I haven't managed to fully recover yet. Even the grand array around Seven Wonders Land has been damaged. That is the reason Yu Xiushan had the guts to come harass us. He had cursed at Yu Xiushan earlier, and now he mentioned this name again." Zhao Baichuan and Chun Tianfei immediately understood that this guy was the one who coveted Seven Wonders Land. "Let's not talk about this kind of problem. I'm really pleased that both of you have arrived at Seven Wonders Land. Come, prepare a banquet." This Qi must have a few drinks with Brother Chin and Head Manager Zhao. As soon as he gave the order, some people immediately left to prepare for a feast. Since Qi Qiao was acting so hospitable, Zhao Baichuan and Chen Tianfei naturally wouldn't turn him down as they got ready to attend the banquet. Inside their cave in the shopping district, Yang Kai and Yuhi traded glances and felt speechless. They came here of all places? Did they discover something? Yuhi was worried. The disturbance earlier was pretty loud, so they were able to hear it even though they were hiding in the shopping district. However, they couldn't hear the conversation between Qi Qiao and those from Scarlet Star, so they wondered what they were talking about. That's not likely, but we should still be careful. Yang Kai appeared solemn. He reckoned that he hadn't left any traces behind, so those from Scarlet Star shouldn't have discovered anything. Moreover, if they had found out their whereabouts, they would have made a move instead of letting them stay here peacefully. Nevertheless, Yang Kai thought that he still had to act carefully. It was impossible to leave this place now as he might alert their enemies. Moreover, not everyone from Scarlet Star had arrived at this place yet, so it was apparent that some of them were still looking for him in other locations. Now they could only wait patiently. While they were worried, the people at the banquet were drinking and having a lively chat. Qi Qiao, Heavenly Monarch, intended to befriend Zhao Baichuan, so he had been quite hospitable. However, he soon discovered that Zhao Baichuan was still a fifth-order Open Heaven Realm Master. It seemed that the other party hadn't managed to break through yet. While he was slightly disappointed, Qi Qiao also secretly breathed a sigh of relief. After all, he was also a fifth-order Open Heaven Realm Master, and he was injured. He would feel pressured if he were to face a sixth-order Open Heaven Realm Master. The atmosphere was harmonious as they only talked about worldly affairs and nothing else. Chen Tianfei intended to bring up the topic of borrowing some people from Qi Qiao, but he was secretly stopped by Zhao Baichuan. Despite not understanding his intentions, Chen Tianfei still obeyed his order. When the banquet was over, Zhao Baichuan made a request to have a look around Seven Wonders Land. Certainly, Qi Qiao wouldn't reject him. Thus he told the Venerable of Earth Spirit Land to lead the way for them and show them the 7 spirit provinces of Seven Wonders Land. Just like Duan Hai, the Earth Spirit Land Venerable Protector was a 4th-order Open Heaven Realm Master, the same realm as Chen Tianfei. Upon getting the monarch's order, he wholeheartedly acted as a guide, furthering the pleasant exchange between the two parties. In the evening, those from Scarlet Star were given fitting accommodations to rest in. Inside one of the palaces, Zhao Baichuan was looking out the window. Without saying a word, Chen Tianfei was standing behind him. A long time later, Zhao Baichuan sighed. "This is such a beautiful view. Old Chen, how do you find Seven Wonders Land?" Chen Tianfei wasn't sure what the head manager meant by that. So after giving it a thought, he replied, "The 7 spirit provinces can nurture yin, yang, and the 5 elements, so it's indeed a precious piece of land. Moreover, Qi Qiao, Heavenly Monarch, has been developing this place for years. Although Seven Wonders Land is not as powerful as the Cave Heavens or Paradises, it's pretty extraordinary among the second-class great forces." Zhao Baichuan nodded his head. "I've been to the headquarters of some second-class forces before, and I can tell you that the heritage of Seven Wonders Land can be considered upper-middle rank amongst them." There was a bitter smile on Chen Tianfei's face. "In the past, if we could have resisted the pressure from the other forces and carefully managed Scarlet Star, we would have become as great as Seven Wonders Land. Unfortunately, Sword Pavilion and Thunder Light came along, and we had no choice but to share territory with them. Strictly speaking, Scarlet Star was also a second-class great force, and it was the same case for Sword Pavilion and Thunder Light. All 3 of them had mid-rank Open Heaven Realm Masters in command as well as numerous low-rank Open Heaven Realm Masters. At that time, the Star City could have been considered a single spirit province. However, since 3 great forces were crammed together, there were bound to be conflicts, and it was difficult for any one of them to develop rapidly. This was the reason Scarlet Star was inferior to Seven Wonders Land. Zhao Baichuan put on a faint smile. "Fortunately, both Sword Pavilion and Thunder Light are gone for good, while Scarlet Star has survived. But our Star City was also destroyed." Chen Tianfei appeared dejected. He felt his heart aching every time he thought about it. The Star City was engulfed by the grand ancient ruins rolling fog and broken into countless pieces. It had completely disappeared. Now, they were not even certain where they could settle down. It wasn't like they could bring so many people to wander around the 3,000 worlds forever. As long as we're still around, we can always rise again, Zhao Baichuan appeared confident. Head manager is right, Chen Tianfei said respectfully. But, since we're here to borrow people, why did you stop me from bringing up this issue to Qi Qiao? Yang Kai is a cunning brat. If this matter drags on, he'll find a chance and flee. Don't mention borrowing people again. Zhao Baichuan waved his hand. Judging from the current situation, it is Qi Qiao who will want to borrow people from us, not the other way round. Chen Tianfei wasn't a fool. So his expression changed when he heard that and began to ask, head manager, you mean? Zhao Baichuan grinned at the banquet before. After giving it a thought, this king recalled that Yu Shan is the temple master of Flying Smoke Temple. He is also a fifth-order master while Flying Smoke Temple is situated in the adjacent Great Territory, so they and Seven Wonders Land are neighbors. Hearing that, Chen Tianfei nodded. There are bound to be conflicts between neighbors. Qi Qiao said that he was injured a few years ago and even the Grand Array around Seven Wonders Land had been damaged. Yu Shan must have smelled blood and decided to make a move to annex Seven Wonders Land in order to strengthen his own force. Zhao Baichuan said, that's what this king thinks as well. Moreover, you might not be aware of it, but of the 7 venerable protectors of Seven Wonders Land, only 4 of them are in the 4th Order Open Heaven realm. The remaining 3 are only 3rd Order Open Heaven realms. After giving it a thought, Chen Tianfei realized that Zhao Baichuan was right. The 3 3rd Order Open Heaven realm masters were the venerable protectors of Fire Spirit Land, Water Spirit Land, and Metal Spirit Land. It didn't catch his attention at that time, but now he found it strange. 3rd Order Open Heaven realm masters were low rank, so how could they become venerable protectors? Zhao Baichuan smiled. If I'm not mistaken, the misfortune that befell Seven Wonders Land in the past was tremendous. The previous venerable protectors must be dead, so 3 third orders were promoted by Qi Qiao as there were no other suitable candidates. Upon hearing his reasoning, Chen Tianfei did not miss a chance to flatter. Head manager is indeed intelligent. Just like what you've said, Qi Qiao might want to borrow some people from us. Then, he observed his expression for a bit. Do you intend to interfere in this matter? But, how will this benefit us in any way? These are their grudges. Even if we help Qi Qiao fend off the attacks from Flying Smoke Temple, he will only thank us. On the other hand, Yang Kai has so many treasures with him that can help us rise up again. Zhao Baichuan snorted. Certainly, Qi Qiao's gratitude doesn't matter to this king. Then, with a smug expression, he pointed forward and asked, Old Chun, how do you find this place? Wouldn't it be better if its name was changed to Scarlet Star? Chen Tianfei felt his chest tightening as his usually narrowed eyes widened. Since Zhao Baichuan had said so, it was apparent to Chen Tianfei that the head manager intended to snatch Seven Wonders Land. At that instant, he felt apprehensive as Seven Wonders Land wasn't so weak that they could oppress as they pleased. There was a 5th Order Open Heaven Realm Master as well as a number of 4th Order Masters assuming command. Moreover, they were in the other party's headquarters. If they wanted to make a fuss here, they might fall into trouble should they act recklessly. However, after pondering on it for a moment, Chen Tianfei realized that it was actually feasible. Presently, Flying Smoke Temple had their eyes on Seven Wonders Land, so if they waited until the 2 parties became mutually wounded before making a move, they might stand a chance to seize this treasured land. It was no wonder that the head manager requested to have a look around Seven Wonders Land. He wanted to survey his new domain. Chen Tianfei felt his heart pounding against his chest as his lips went dry. He was both anxious and excited. Secretly, he admired the head manager for his boldness. If they could snatch this treasured land, the value would be as great as capturing Yang Kai. Moreover, while Yang Kai was nowhere to be found, Seven Wonders Land was right in front of them. With a solemn expression, he took a step back and cupped his fists. Head manager, please give the order. This Chin will do whatever it takes to repay your favor for nurturing me. Zhao Baichuan chuckled and patted his shoulder. There's no rush. We have to come up with a detailed plan first. Then he turned around and looked down before saying quietly, we do need a place where we can settle down. Meanwhile, in another grand hall, Qi Qiao Heavenly Monarch was quietly listening to the report from the Venerable of Earth Spirit Land. Previously, he told this man to lead those from Scarlet Star to have a stroll around Seven Wonders Land because he was a scrupulous person who could observe things that others couldn't. After the report, Qi Qiao asked, Did you find anything that was amiss? Hearing that, the Earth Spirit Land Venerable shook his head. No. Those from Scarlet Star were acting normally. I couldn't find anything wrong with them. The Venerable Protector of Een Spirit Land, a middle-aged woman, heard this and frowned. Heavenly Monarch. Why have those from Scarlet Star come to Seven Wonders Land at such a critical moment? Could there be a plot afoot? Qichao stared at her and said, I know what you're worried about, but Scarlet Star is quite far away from this place. Moreover, as far as I know, they've never come into contact with the Flying Smoke Temple, so it's unlikely that they have joined forces to harm us. Certainly, we can't rule out this possibility, so we have to investigate further. I'm relieved that you've taken that into consideration. The woman bowed her head. The Venerable Protector of Yang Spirit Land landed a fist on the table and bellowed, Damn it! If it weren't because Su Huang made a fuss in the past, we wouldn't have fallen into such a state. If the Grand Array were still intact, Yu Shoushan wouldn't have the guts to create trouble. In order to break through a Grand Array that protected a spirit province, one had to pay a hefty price. It wasn't certain how Yu Shoushan found out that the Grand Array around Seven Wonders Land had been damaged, but like a cat catching a whiff of a fishy smell, Yu Shoushan hurriedly came over. In the past few years, there had been more than 20 fights, and there had been losses on both sides. Although those from Flying Smoke Temple hadn't gained the upper hand, the weaknesses of the Grand Array around Seven Wonders Land had worsened. The Grand Array was at risk of falling apart. Qichao's expression turned gloomy when he heard the name Su Huang. In the past, Su Huang had raised hell in this place. Qichao and other venerable protectors joined forces and severely injured him, so it was most likely that he was dead. However, during the battle, 3 venerable protectors lost their lives, while Qichao was severely injured. Many of their disciples were killed and a large number of workers had escaped. It could be said that they had suffered immense losses. However, the bigger problem was that Su Huang had secretly altered the controlling rights of the Grand Array, which made it impossible for Qichao to fully control it now. Therefore, he could only make use of 60% of the Grand Array's power. He was injured, but at the same time he had to refine the Grand Array again. It could be said that he was exhausted both physically and mentally. What made him feel even more apprehensive was that Su Huang had brought the Array Jade with him when he ran away. He had a Grand Array control token as well, but it was only a copy of the original one. The real Jade was in Su Huang's possession. That Jade was superior to the one Qichao had when it came to manipulating the Grand Array. If he could obtain the Jade, he could solve the crisis they were facing by regaining control over the Grand Array. However, he wasn't sure if Su Huang was dead or alive and the Jade was nowhere to be found. It could be said that the situation wasn't in his favor. After a sigh, Qichao looked at the Venerable Protector of Earth Spirit Land, Wei Hua. I'll let you deal with those from Scarlet Star. Find out their intentions as soon as possible. Scarlet Star and Seven Wonders Land were separated by many great territories, so he didn't believe that they would come all the way here for no reason. However, he was a reserved individual, so he didn't inquire about it at the banquet. Following a grunt, the Venerable Protector of Earth Spirit Land rose from his chair and cupped his fists. Yes. All of you may leave now. Qichao waved his hand, whereupon all of them streamed out of the hall. After receiving Qichao's order, Venerable Protector Wei Hua went on to hospitably treat those from Scarlet Star over the next few days. He would hold a banquet every evening and share with them the local products of Seven Wonders Land and this great territory, slowly building up a rapport. Nevertheless, Wei Hua felt speechless at the fact that these people from Scarlet Star never revealed their intentions for coming to this place, as though they had really come all the way here just to have a stroll. They would attend the banquet every day and drink the wine presented to them. They would also gladly accept the female disciples sent to serve them in bed. Wei Hua had no idea what they were up to. One day, during another banquet, Wei Hua was tipsy and unable to take it anymore. He asked directly, Brother Chan, why have all of you come all the way to Seven Wonders Land? Just tell me if there's anything you need. Our heavenly monarch is a generous person, so he won't disappoint you. Chun Tianfei's face was red as he appeared intoxicated as well, but in fact, he was totally sober. Hearing this, he thought to himself that those from Seven Wonders Land couldn't hold back their curiosity and anxiety anymore. The grand ancient ruins boundary opened? Inside the grand hall, Qi Qiao was dumbfounded upon hearing the Earth Spirit Land Venerable's report, while the other open heaven realm masters were equally stunned. The grand ancient ruins boundary was a wondrous place. Even though many people had heard about its existence, it took a great opportunity for anyone to be able to enter. Moreover, even if one managed to enter, it wasn't certain if they could come out alive. It was an opportunity as well as a risk. Wei Hua nodded. That was what Chen Tianfei told me. The female venerable of In Spirit Land asked, Senior Brother Wei, do you think he was telling the truth? Wei Hua shook his head. I'll need to investigate further before I can verify his claim. However, based on my observation, Chen Tianfei didn't seem to be lying. Moreover, this matter has far-reaching implications, and the news will be spread quickly. I don't think they would do something so foolish as to tell such an easily exposed lie. Qi Qiao nodded. That's right. The opening of Grand Ancient Ruins boundary is a major event, and no one can hide it. Wei Hua said, apparently, their star city was swallowed by the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary, so they're homeless now. When they were finally able to leave, they happened to be around this place. Heavenly Monarch, Chen Tianfei remembered you, which was why he decided to come to Seven Wonders Land to have a short stay. I see, Qi Qiao muttered. Previously, he wondered why those from Scarlet Star would come all the way here to his territory. He came to find now that it was because of the opening of the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary, which was a valid reason. The eyes of Yang Spirit Land Venerable brightened as he said, Heavenly Monarch, in that case, we can consider taking in those people from Scarlet Star. Now that they're homeless, we can make them stay in Seven Wonders Land to strengthen our power. By then, we won't have to be afraid of you, Xiaoshan, anymore. Would Spirit Land Venerable snorted, Are you out of your mind? Chen Tianfei doesn't matter as he's just a fourth order. But Zhao Baichuan is a fifth order open heaven realm master who is in the same realm as Heavenly Monarch. Regardless of whether we can take them in or not, I'm worried that they will not be loyal to us. Yang Spirit Land Venerable found this to be sensible. Zhao Baichuan was a fifth order open heaven realm master, so if he was allowed to stay in Seven Wonders Land, it was difficult to subdue him as he might not be willing to work under the Heavenly Monarch. Moreover, those from Scarlet Star had lost their star city, so they needed a new place to call home, therefore they might covet Seven Wonders Land. It was akin to welcoming wolves into one's home if they were allowed to stay. After giving it a thought, Yang Spirit Land Venerable said, We don't have to take them in, but we can employ them. Qi Qiao gazed at him. You mean? There was a smile on Yang Spirit Land Venerable's face. They don't have a place to call home anyway, and Chen Tianfei is an old acquaintance of yours. If we can offer a good price, they might be willing to lend us a hand. One of them is a fifth order open heaven realm master, and the other is a fourth order open heaven realm master. If we put them in the right places, they can help us destroy Flying Smoke Temple. The Wood Spirit Land Venerable scoffed. You're oversimplifying things. There seemed to be some grudges between the two venerables. Seeing as the other party refuted him again, Yang Spirit Land Venerable sported a dark expression and glared at him. What opinion do you have then? Wood Spirit Land Venerable said. They have just left the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary. Even though we've never been to that place, we've heard about it. There's great danger as well as opportunities inside. As long as one is able to leave that place alive, they will undoubtedly bring with them immense rewards. Now they're alive and kicking. Although I have no idea what they've obtained, they're definitely not poor. What can we offer that will make them willing to lend us a hand? They will brush us off if the benefits are not good enough, and will suffer a loss if the benefits are too tremendous. Yang Spirit Land Venerable tried to argue, but Chen Tianfei is an old friend of Heavenly Monarch. If Heavenly Monarch personally, have you cultivated too long and lost your mind? Wood Spirit Land Venerable gave him a disdainful look. Regardless of whether Chen Tianfei will value this friendship and decide to lend us a hand, he's not the head manager of Scarlet Star. The head manager is Zhao Baichuan. If Heavenly Monarch is turned down, our force will be thoroughly embarrassed. Yang Spirit Land Venerable was fuming with rage, but he had to admit that the other Venerable was right. Therefore, he was lost for words at the moment. Qi Qiao was seated at the head of the hall as he stared coldly at his subordinates, who were bickering with each other, only interjecting after some time to ask, Miao Yu, since you keep refuting him, you must have a plan in mind. Why don't you tell us about it? Miao Yu is the name of the Wood Spirit Land Venerable. Hearing that, Yang Spirit Land Venerable became elated as he took pleasure in Miao Yu's misfortune, waiting for the latter to embarrass himself in front of the heavenly monarch. Nevertheless, with a confident look on his face, Miao Yu explained, "Yes, heavenly monarch. I do have an idea. If this plan works, not only can we pay nothing to get the help of those from Scarlet Star, but we can also have a chance to get rid of you Xiao Shan forever. However, you have to personally act to express our sincerity." Yang Spirit Land Venerable glowered at him. Nonsense. However, Qi Chao's interest had been piqued. "Tell me about it." As Miao Yu explained his idea, the eyes of the people in the grand hall brightened as they appeared excited. Even though Yang Spirit Land Venerable was displeased, he had to admit that the other Venerable was a clever person. He hated himself for not being able to come up with such a simple solution, which allowed his rival to gain all the credit. Upon hearing the full plan, Qi Chao guffawed. "Miao Yu, your idea will help us chase the wolves away while getting all the benefits, and with an overt plot at that. Even if those from Scarlet Star see through it, they will still be tempted. Wonderful. If this plan works, you will be rewarded greatly." There was a polite smile on Miao Yu's face. "Heavenly Monarch, it is my duty to help you share your burden, so I wouldn't dare to take any credit for it." Then, with a smug expression, he shot a glance at Yang Spirit Land Venerable, which infuriated the latter. After rising from his chair, Qi Chao Heavenly Monarch declared, "We should get it done quickly as Yu Xiao Shan might strike again at any moment. This king will look for Zhao Baichuan and discuss this matter with him now." Miao Yu then said, "Heavenly Monarch, regarding the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary." Qi Chao stopped in his tracks and fell silent for a moment. "Get some people to look into this matter. If the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary really opened, news would have spread quickly and caused a great commotion. Just ask around in the Universe Temple, and we will soon know the truth." "Yes," Miao Yu replied respectfully. Half a day later, in the palace where those from Scarlet Star lived, Zhao Baichuan and Chun Tianfei hospitably saw Qi Chao off. It wasn't certain what the discussion was about, but all of them sported bright smiles on their faces. Apparently, they were happy with the outcome. "It's decided, then. I will be counting on your assistance then, Brother Zhao." Qi Chao cupped his fists. His face had been pale due to his injury, but at this moment, it seemed to be glowing. Zhao Baichuan cupped his fists back and said, "Many thanks, Heavenly Monarch. This Zhao and all of us from Scarlet Star are grateful that you found such a great opportunity for us. If everything works out, we will certainly prepare a great gift for you." "You're too polite." Qi Chao chuckled and bid them farewell before leaving. In his heart, he was extremely pleased. Initially, if they wanted to seek the help of those from Scarlet Star, they would have had to pay a hefty price. However, by using Miao Yu's plan, not only could they pay nothing, they also stood to gain a reward from Scarlet Star after the incident. This was indeed a perfect plan with all the benefits going to them. After Qi Chao was gone, Zhao Baichuan and Chen Tianfei returned to their hall and opened a barrier to prevent anyone from eavesdropping on them. With an awkward expression, Chen Tianfei stroked his chin. "Head manager, just like what you had expected, Qi Chao came to borrow some people from us, but his idea is interesting." Zhao Baichuan chuckled. "This open conspiracy is indeed ingenious." Chen Tianfei nodded his head. "They know that we're homeless, so we need a place to settle down. As long as we can help them get rid of Yu Xiao Shan, we can take over Flying Smoke Temple." "TSK, such a perfect plan." "Head manager, what do you think?" He knew that Zhao Baichuan intended to snatch Seven Wonders Land, but Qi Chao had presented Flying Smoke Temple to them as bait, so he wasn't sure if they should accept it. Strictly speaking, Qi Chao's suggestion would most likely work. After all, if they joined forces, there was no way those from Flying Smoke Temple could defeat them. If they could come up with a proper plan, they certainly could snatch the temple. On the other hand, they were not confident that they could take control of Seven Wonders Land. Zhao Baichuan just wanted a place to settle down, and Seven Wonders Land and Flying Smoke Temple were both second-class forces. So either of them would be fine. There was no reason for them to insist on choosing Seven Wonders Land. Therefore, the head manager would have to make a decision. Zhao Baichuan, however, just sneered and replied, "This king knows nothing about Flying Smoke Temple, but I've taken a liking to Seven Wonders Land. Hearing that, Qin Tianfei knew that the head manager was determined to obtain Seven Wonders Land. After pondering on it for a moment, he said, "Should we pretend to play along and act according to the circumstances?" Then, Zhao Baichuan said, "Don't worry, I've already made some arrangements. Now we'll have to see if we can pull in one more pawn. If we can do that, we'll definitely achieve our goal." Right then, Zhao Baichuan's expression changed as he waved his hand to undo the barrier. The next moment, a third-order master stepped into the hall with an unconscious woman in his hand. Then he cupped his fists and said, "Manager Zhao, Manager Qin." This third-order master was one of the great commanders of Scarlet Star, and his position was only below the manager's. Previously, he had followed Zhao Baichuan and Qin Tianfei to enter Seven Wonders Land. There were more than 10 low-rank cultivators just like him, but their powers varied. "How was it?" Zhao Baichuan asked. The man replied excitedly, "Just as head manager expected, some of the disciples from Seven Wonders Land have left in succession." Zhao Baichuan scoffed, "The news of the opening of the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary has been spread. So they definitely send some people to gather information. After all, they don't fully trust us." The person said, "I was waiting for a long time before I found a chance to capture one of them. Soon, the other one will come into contact with the other managers." Initially, Qin Tianfei had no idea what this person was saying, but after listening for a while, he became excited and immediately realized the head manager's plan. Secretly, he admired the head manager's cunning. Previously, while the head manager told Qin Tianfei to unobtrusively reveal the news regarding the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary, he also secretly set up a plot. Qin Tianfei felt that he was no match for the head manager when it came to intelligence, so he became even more respectful of the latter. There was no way those from Scarlet Star could hide the news regarding the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary, nor did they intend to do so. However, Qin Tianfei had never expected that the head manager could make use of this news. By revealing the news regarding the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary, they could assure those from Seven Wonders Land that they didn't come all the way here for no reason. They were homeless because their star city was destroyed, and they happened to be sent to this place. Secondly, upon learning about this news, those from Seven Wonders Land would send some people to verify this claim, which gave the people from Scarlet Star an opportunity. It had to be noted that Zhao Baichuan had several dozen Open Heaven Realm Masters working under him, but presently he only had more than 10 of them with him. People like Lady Qin, the Ouyang brothers, and Bei Yushan were currently elsewhere. In order to snatch Seven Wonders Land, they had to contact those people. Zhao Baichuan and Qin Tianfei alone were not able to achieve this goal. However, there was a grand array around Seven Wonders Land, so even though it was currently damaged, Zhao Baichuan still couldn't contact Bei Yushan and the others freely. If they made any rash move, they would arouse the suspicion of those from Seven Wonders Land. The people of Seven Wonders Land had fallen into Zhao Baichuan's trap by sending disciples to gather some information. He had gotten some people to wait in the dark and make a move at the right time, and as expected, it was a success. A third-order Open Heaven Realm Master couldn't be considered powerful in the 3,000 worlds, but he wasn't weak either. It was easy for him to subdue a Seven Wonders Land's disciple and plant a seal on his body to force him to send a message for them, unless the disciple valued his sect over his own life. Nevertheless, how many people in this world were not afraid of death? "Who is this woman?" Qin Tianfei looked puzzledly at the unconscious woman. The man replied with a smile, "The disciple I sent out was a man, and I suppose this woman is his partner. With this woman in our hands, I believe he won't betray us." A shocked Qin Tianfei said, "You took her in just like this? Did anyone see you?" The person shook his head. "Manager Qin, don't worry. I'm sure no one saw me." "Good." Zhao Baichuan nodded. "You've done well. You can leave now. This woman will stay here." "Yes." The man put down the woman and respectfully left. Just then, the woman slowly opened her eyes as her long eyelashes fluttered. As soon as she saw Zhao Baichuan, she was astounded. Before she could figure out what was going on, though, she saw Zhao Baichuan lifting his hand. The next instant, her vision darkened, and she could no longer feel anything. A moment later, only a pile of ash was left on the ground. The female disciple was killed. Seeing that, Chun Tianfei knew that the male disciple who was forced to send a message was doomed as well. As soon as he came into contact with Bei Yushan and the others, he would be killed. Regardless, it was better to have fewer people who were aware of this incident. To Seven Wonders Land, it didn't matter to lose 2 disciples. After all, presently, the people from Flying Smoke Temple had their eyes on Seven Wonders Land. Otherwise, they wouldn't have separately sent their disciples away to gather information. That was because they were worried that those disciples would be killed all at once. Since the plot had been fully set up, all they could do now was wait. Zhao Baichuan never left Seven Wonders Land, but he was able to mobilize his subordinates and make appropriate arrangements. His calm demeanor showed that he was a natural leader. Time went by slowly. 3 days later, the shopping district became desolate. The shopping district was only open for 3 days every month, being empty most of the time. Now, it was easier for Yang Kai and Yu He to conceal themselves. Presently, Yu He was still tirelessly refining the array jade. It seemed that she was interested in Seven Wonders Land. After all, it was the headquarters of a second-class great force. On the other hand, Yang Kai was silently recuperating. He was seriously wounded in the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary, and subsequently he was hunted down by those from Scarlet Star, which aggravated his injuries. Now that he finally had a moment of peace, he had to seize the chance to heal himself. As he was doing so, he was also going through the harvest he had obtained from the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary. Although he had been trapped inside that place for more than 10 years, the resources he had accumulated were immense. The trip to the Yuan Magnetic Mountain alone had made him become filthy rich overnight. The Yuan Magnetism Divine Stones in the 4th, 5th, and even 6th order were all worth immense amounts of money in the 3,000 worlds. Su Zhen had also helped him refine the Yuan Magnetic Divine Bottle Gourd, which contained the 6th order Yuan Magnetic Divine Light in it. As soon as these artifacts were put up for sale, no low-rank master could resist the temptation. In addition, he had hundreds of millions of open heaven pills. In the past, after he arrived at the Sword Pavilion's Star City, he found everyone slaughtered and managed to pick up several tens of thousands of space rings. All the things in the rings were valuable, not to mention that he pocketed 70% of Scarlet Star's income over the years. Under his protection, Scarlet Star grew rapidly and became extremely profitable. In return, 70% of their income fell into Yang Kai's hands. Could be said that in the past over 10 years, Yang Kai had accumulated a heritage that would take any ordinary second-class force 100 or even several hundred years to match. The resources he had were simply innumerable. It was so much, Yang Kai had no idea how much wealth he really had. Yu He might be aware of it because it was she who had been dealing with the people from Scarlet Star over the years. Besides that, the rewards from the primordial land were substantial as well. 3 divine medicines, 16 world fruits, a large quantity of Tai soul cleansing water, and the world tree's root, not to mention that Zhu Jiuyin had promised to be his protector for 1,000 years. She had sworn upon her source, so she had to protect Yang Kai at all costs for the next 1,000 years. Unfortunately, her source had been damaged while they were fleeing, so she had fallen into a deep sleep. Otherwise, Yang Kai wouldn't have been hunted down by Scarlet Scar. Additionally, he also had the Scarlet Flood Dragon and Earth Dragon. These two were able to face 4th Order Open Heaven Realm Masters in the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary without any trouble. So although Yang Kai had no idea how powerful they were in the outside world, there was no way they were weak. Besides these tangible benefits, his own strength had also increased significantly. In Crouching Dragon Mountain, he obtained the remains of a great dragon and refined its dragon bead to condense his earth element power. Then, he picked countless dragon blood flowers and refined them into dragon blood pills to purify his dragon vein. After that, he obtained the moon essence and refined his water element before comprehending Golden Crow casts the Sun Divine Manifestation. With this divine manifestation alone, he would be able to deal with low-rank open heaven masters. There was also a space secret technique he had comprehended when receiving the Tai soul cleansing water in the primordial land, near Horizon. Previously, he wasn't sure how to name it, but now he had finally found a suitable name. Rather than a divine ability or secret technique, it was actually just a flexible use of space principles. Once used, Yang Kai could stretch space around himself infinitely. The two parties might appear to be near each other, but the user was actually as distant as the horizon. There was no way the other party could approach once caught in this phenomenon. Furthermore, Yang Kai had spent the past 2 years comprehending over 1,000 spear techniques, eliminating the bad while retaining the good to create his own original spear technique. It could be said that in the past over 10 years in the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary, Yang Kai had grown tremendously. Now, he was no longer the same man who had just broken free from his universe world's restraints and arrived in the 3,000 worlds. He wasn't the bumpkin who found everything new and interesting anymore. When it came to wealth, even the sect masters of second-class great forces were no match for him, and he might even be wealthier than some high-rank open heaven realm masters. No one would have believed such a fantastical tale even if he told his story personally. As he went through his harvest, Yang Kai kept smiling foolishly, making Yuhi somewhat speechless. 1 month later, he had fully recovered and returned to his peak. Seizing the chance, Yang Kai snuck out of the cave and scanned the surroundings, whereupon he realized that the people from Scarlet Star were still in Seven Wonders Land. This realization puzzled him as he wondered what benefits there were in Seven Wonders Land that could make the people from Scarlet Star stay. Nevertheless, he wouldn't dare to make a rash move. It was easy to leave Seven Wonders Land now, as over the past month Yuhi had been refining the Array Jade, and she had now achieved over 40% control. However, things were getting harder as she progressed further. In order to fully refine the Jade and take control of the Grand Array, it would take her at least 6 months to a year. After all, Yuhi wasn't Su Huang, who knew Seven Wonders Land inside and out, and it still took him a long time to alter the controlling rights of the Grand Array. In the end, his plan was ruined when Yang Kai was exposed. Although Yuhi was also a fifth-order open heaven realm master, it was time-consuming for her to refine something that didn't belong to her. Young master, I can't keep refining it. On this day, Yuhi suddenly furrowed her brow. What's wrong? Yang Kai looked doubtfully at her. Yuhi replied, I have a feeling that if I keep refining it, the owner of Seven Wonders Land will notice it. What percentage of it have you refined? About 50%. Yang Kai nodded gently. Stop refining it then if you can't progress any further. You can always do it after leaving this place. There's no rush. In the past, before Su Huang's death, he told Yang Kai to help him retrieve Seven Wonders Land and get revenge on his behalf. However, it was just the last words of a dying man. An enemy, no less. It wasn't Yang Kai's intention at all. The reason he had been refining the Jade was that she had nothing else to do. Since there was now a risk of being discovered though, she naturally couldn't keep going lest their whereabouts be exposed. What made Yang Kai feel speechless was that 2 months had passed, but Zhao Baichuan and Chen Tianfei didn't seem to have the intention of leaving, which made him feel doubtful. Could it be that the people from Scarlet Star intended to join Seven Wonders Land? He couldn't rule out the possibility. Since their star city was gone, they needed a place to stay, and Seven Wonders Land was the perfect place for that. Nevertheless, was Zhao Baichuan really willing to work under Qi Qiao? Did Qi Qiao have the guts to accept him? While Yang Kai was lost in his thoughts, he felt the world shake suddenly, and rumbling sounds were continuously heard. Flabbergasted, he immediately realized what was going on and muttered, Seven Wonders Land is under attack. Could it be Yu Xiaoshan? Yuhi asked. I think so. Yang Kai didn't know who Yu Xiaoshan was, but when the people from Scarlet Star arrived at this place, the Heavenly Monarch mentioned this name, which made Yang Kai realize that there were some grudges between the two parties. Moreover, Yu Xiaoshan must have launched some attacks on Seven Wonders Land before. At this moment, no one but Yu Xiaoshan could be the mastermind behind the attack on Seven Wonders Land. As expected, Qi Qiao soon bellowed, Old dog Yu Xiaoshan, how dare you come here again? A raucous laugh was heard coming from the distance in response. Qi Qiao, this old master is here to end your life. If you're clever, you'd better open the Grand Array and allow me to kill you quickly so as to spare the lives of the others from Seven Wonders Land. Otherwise, haha, don't blame this old master for slaughtering all of you. Hearing that, many disciples from Seven Wonders Land felt apprehensive. Qi Qiao snapped back, Old fart, all of you from Flying Smoke Temple will never be able to swallow up Seven Wonders Land. Leave now and this king will spare your life. Refuse and you'll only embarrass yourself. The way Qi Qiao spoke was diffident, which elicited a laugh from Yu Xiaoshan. As they sparred verbally with each other, they seemed closer and closer to an all-out fight. Seven Wonders Land was protected by its Grand Array. So if the people from Flying Smoke Temple wanted to invade this place, they had to destroy the defensive barrier first. In the past, they were not capable of doing that. After all, both parties were equally matched. However, after the chaos Su Huang had raised, many weaknesses appeared in the Grand Array. On the other hand, Qi Qiao still hadn't recovered up until this point, so he was unable to fully activate the Grand Array's power. It was for this reason that the people from Flying Smoke Temple repeatedly attacked Seven Wonders Land in order to annex this place. Previously, they had gotten into over 20 skirmishes. Although the people from Flying Smoke Temple were defeated each time, they didn't go home empty-handed. At the very least, they had figured out the current status of the Grand Array. Therefore, as soon as the battle began, the Open Heaven Realm Masters from Flying Smoke Temple received a directive from Yu Xiaoshan and began targeting a particular spot. That spot was where Yang Kai and Yuhi passed through previously. It was also the weakest spot in the Grand Array. Qi Qiao was so enraged he began cursing out loud, but there was nothing he could do. He could only join forces with the other Open Heaven Realm Masters to reinforce the Grand Array's power to parry the enemy attack. At that moment, they fell into an intense battle as booming sounds were continuously heard. In Seven Wonders Land, all 7 spirit provinces shook violently with mountains crumbling one after another. In the shopping district, Yang Kai and Yuhi sported solemn expressions. They were in trouble as they were caught between 2 second-class great forces that were clashing with each other. It would be great if the people from Seven Wonders Land could defend this place, which would allow Yang Kai and Yuhi to continue hiding here. If they couldn't, the people from Flying Smoke Temple would occupy Seven Wonders Land and launch a thorough search. By then, their whereabouts might be exposed. Young Master, should we look for a chance to escape? Yuhi asked in a hushed voice. In my opinion, the Grand Array can only last for a while longer. She had refined 50% of the Array Jade, and although she wouldn't dare to activate the Grand Array so as not to attract Qi Qiao's attention, she could feel the Grand Array's condition through it. How much longer can it last? Yang Kai asked. Yuhi replied, based on the intensity of the attacks, the Grand Array can only last for half a month. Moreover, I believe the other party hasn't gone all out yet. If they do, the time before the Grand Array collapses will be shortened. Hearing that, Yang Kai nodded. Since Yuhi said so, there wouldn't be any mistake. It seemed that the Grand Array couldn't stop the people of Flying Smoke Temple from storming into Seven Wonders Land. Once the Grand Array broke, Seven Wonders Land would fall into a horrible state, and they would also be implicated. Now, they really had to ponder over a way out of this situation. However, there was one thing he didn't understand. Would the people from Scarlet Star make a move in this battle? Why hadn't they left yet? Had they come to any agreement with the Heavenly Monarch? With the help of Scarlet Star, Seven Wonders Land might be able to fend off Flying Smoke Temple. After all, Zhao Baichuan was a 5th Order Open Heaven Realm Master, and he had many Open Heaven Realm subordinates under him. 2 days later, the battle was still ongoing. However, with the Grand Array in place, the two sides hadn't really directly come into contact with each other. Suddenly, Yuhi frowned and appeared puzzled. Why has the Grand Array's power dropped so quickly? What's wrong? Yang Kai gazed at her. Yuhi explained this Grand Array is fairly powerful, so supposedly it shouldn't have been worn down so quickly. Initially, I thought that it could last for 10 days to half a month, but now, it seems that it will break in just 5 days. That quick? A glint flashed across Yang Kai's eyes when he heard this. Then he fell into his thoughts. Maybe you're not mistaken. Yuhi gazed at him. What do you mean? What if Qi Qiao is intentionally weakening the Grand Array to feign defeat to their opponents? Yuhi wasn't a fool as she had managed to reach the 5th Order Open Heaven Realm. So her gaze brightened when she heard that. Young Master. You mean? Yang Kai guffawed. Flying Smoke Temple is in trouble now. The people from Scarlet Star must have come to an agreement with Qi Qiao. They were hiding in the dark and waiting for a chance to make a move. Once the Heavenly Monarch let those from Flying Smoke Temple in, Zhao Baichuan would act. When that happened, with the two great forces teaming up, there was no way Flying Smoke Temple would be able to match them. However, they couldn't act conspicuously, which was why the Heavenly Monarch had been slowly weakening the Grand Array and pretending that they were powerless to resist. They were trying to lure Yu Xiaoshan in and trap him. Upon this realization, Yang Kai couldn't help but admire Qi Chao's audacity to let his enemies into his home, an act that required a lot of nerve. If any unexpected event took place, Seven Wonders Land would suffer huge losses. Was there anything Yang Kai could do in such a battle? Could he interfere in this matter and get some benefits for himself? If he found a chance and killed Qi Chao, it would help he seize full control of the Grand Array. However, just controlling the Grand Array was useless. Zhao Baichuan and Yu Xiaoshan were both Fifth-Order Open Heaven Realm Masters. So if they were not killed as well, Seven Wonders Land would fall into the hands of one of them. After giving it a thought, Yang Kai decided to give up on the idea. It was best for him to just sit atop the mountain and watch the tigers fight for now. Just like what Yang Kai had expected, the Grand Array around Seven Wonders Land had been unobtrusively weakened by Qi Chao, and in just 5 days, a huge gap appeared in the barrier. Following that, Qi Chao's furious but helpless roar reverberated across all 7 spirit provinces. With Temple Master Yu Xiaoshan leading the way, the top cultivators from Flying Smoke Temple passed through the opening and entered Seven Wonders Land. As soon as both parties came into contact, they fell into a life-and-death battle. Both parties were second-class great forces, and they possessed foundations that had been accumulated over countless years. Supposedly, they were equally matched. Nevertheless, over 10 years ago, Su Huang went on a rampage in Seven Wonders Land, and besides injuring Qi Chao, he had also killed 3 venerable protectors. In that battle, Seven Wonders Land lost 3 Fourth Order and many more low-rank Open Heaven Realm Masters. It could be said that they had suffered immense losses. On the other hand, the imposing cultivators from Flying Smoke Temple were at the peak of their power, so how were the people from Seven Wonders Land supposed to resist? Yu Xiaoshan directly charged towards Qi Chao and launched into a fierce battle with him. The mid-rank cultivators under him went on to deal with Earth Spirit Land Venerable and the others. At that instant, the Open Heaven Realm Masters of Seven Wonders Land fell into danger as they were all at a disadvantage. The Heavenly Monarch was still injured, and even though he was in a one-on-one fight with Yu Xiaoshan, he wasn't a match for the latter. After just an incense stick worth of time, he was hurt by Yu Xiaoshan as he sprayed out a mouthful of blood and stepped backwards. A relentless Yu Xiaoshan raised the warhammer in his hand as a flash of light swirled around his weapon. Upon surging his world force, he attempted to land his weapon on the Heavenly Monarch as he grinned. Qi Chao, after you're killed, this old master will take good care of your wife and concubines. Ha 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 ha. The Heavenly Monarch's face was pale, and his eyes were fuming with rage. However, at this critical moment, he actually sneered. Yu Xiaoshan, do you think you've already won? Actually, you've lost. Yu Xiaoshan's expression changed slightly. Qi Chao clenched his teeth and performed a hand seal. The illusory phantom of a small universe flashed behind him as the world force exploded and he shouted, soul suppression. The next instant, an invisible power radiated from his body. Before Yu Xiaoshan could react, he was struck by the attack and instantly became rooted to the spot, unable to move a muscle. Besides him, Qi Chao was also unable to move. The soul suppression secret technique could suppress and seal an opponent's movements, but the user would also be greatly affected. This could be said to be a double-edged sword. If it was used properly, it could help the user turn the tide of battle, but it could also plunge them into a critical situation. You court death. Yu Xiaoshan bellowed as he continuously surged his power to break free from the soul suppression technique. The aura of his world force kept undulating. Qi Chao sneered as he shouted, "You will be the one that will go to hell today. Head Manager Zhao, please make a move now." The next moment, a figure as swift as wind shot towards them, along with more than 10 Open Heaven Realm Masters. Yu Xiaoshan's expression changed drastically as he exclaimed, "Who are you?" The Heavenly Monarch guffawed. "Yu Xiaoshan, you never expected that I still had a trump card, right? I don't mind telling you about them. He's the head manager of Scarlet Star. His star city has been destroyed, so it just so happens that he is in need of your Flying Smoke Temple's spirit province." As Qi Chao spoke, Zhao Baichuan shot past him and raised his hand. World force surged from his palm as he lightly pushed it out towards Yu Xiaoshan. Seeing that, Qi Chao breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that it was fortunate that the people from Scarlet Star had come to visit all of a sudden. Otherwise, he wouldn't have stood a chance to get rid of Yu Xiaoshan. Just as this thought flashed through his mind though, he saw Xianxia sporting an eerie smile. Chi Chao, you think I'll go to hell? But, as I see it, you're the one who is bound to die. Chi Chao felt his chest tightening as he instinctively had a bad premonition. Before he could react, he saw Zhao Baichuan turning around and landing a palm on him. His eyes widened in disbelief as a sense of shock and fury behind his gaze emerged. Following Zhao Baichuan's attack, a loud boom was heard, and the heavenly monarch's head was pushed into his chest. At the same time, the lower part of his body turned into dust. Zhao Baichuan retracted his hand and straightened up. There wasn't a hint of emotion on his face. Strictly speaking, both of them were fifth-order open heaven realm masters. Even though Chi Chao was injured, he shouldn't have died so easily. However, he had been feigning weakness and even allowed Xianxia to hurt him to fool the latter. That was because he placed all his hope on Zhao Baichuan. However, it never crossed his mind that Zhao Baichuan had already contacted Xianxia and joined forces with him. That was the reason he lost his life for nothing. Chi Chao was a powerful fifth-order open heaven realm master, but he had sustained fatal damage now and was unable to sustain the soul suppression. After Xianxia broke free from the restriction, he traded glances with Zhao Baichuan and smiled. Brother Zhao, many thanks for your assistance. You're welcome, brother you. Zhao Baichuan nodded. W.I. Presently, only half of the heavenly monarch's body was left, while half of his head had been compressed into his chest, so he was truly on his last breath. He could not understand why Zhao Baichuan betrayed him all of a sudden. Since the people from Scarlet Star wanted a new territory, they could help him get rid of Xianxia and then take over Flying Smoke Temple with ease. Why did Zhao Baichuan make a move on him instead? Zhao Baichuan looked down at him and replied impassively, Seven Wonders Land is a good place, and this king has taken a liking to it. Zhao Baichuan knew little about Flying Smoke Temple, but he had carefully surveyed Seven Wonders Land and concluded that it was a terrific place. The 7 spirit provinces were attuned to each of the yin, yang, and 5 elements. The 7 kinds of spirit fruits grown in each respective spirit province could be used to make open heaven pills, which was a stable source of income. If the people of Scarlet Star could settle down in this place, they would have the capital to rise again. Moreover, compared to Xianxia, it was easier to kill Chi Chao. After all, Chi Chao had been seriously wounded, so Zhao Baichuan wouldn't have to worry that he would put up a desperate last struggle and drag him down with him. On the other hand, Xianxia was completely healthy. If he had a secret technique that could overdraft his strength and greatly boost his power before his death, Zhao Baichuan would have to suffer. After going through all the pros and cons, he decided to snatch Seven Wonders Land. The light in Chi Chao's eyes went out. Before his death, he still couldn't believe that while he was plotting against others, he was also walking into someone else's plot. Zhao Baichuan, you'll die a horrible death. He cursed before passing away. There was no emotion on Zhao Baichuan's face. That's none of your concern. Right after Chi Chao lost his life, Chen Tianfei turned into a gigantic meatball and rolled into the battlefield. In an imposing manner, he charged towards Earth Spirit Land Venerable Wei Hua. Wei Hua was already in a perilous situation as he was besieged by 2 fourth-order open heaven realm masters from Flying Smoke Temple. Now that Chen Tianfei also came at him, how was he supposed to fend him off? While horrified, he still tried his best to ward off the attacks from his current enemies. But after 10 breaths of time, he was struck by the gigantic meatball. In an instant, his chest became indented, and he sprayed out a mouthful of blood that was mixed with the pieces of his organs. The 2 fourth-order open heaven realm masters charged forward, and as a glint flashed across their blades, Wei Hua's head flew into the air and blood started spurting out of his neck. First, Chi Chao Heavenly Monarch was betrayed and killed. Then the Earth Spirit Land Venerable was murdered. All this happened in just 10 breaths of time. The turn of events terrified the open heaven realm masters from Seven Wonders Land. Retreat. Seeing as the situation wasn't in their favor, would Spirit Land Venerable Miao Yu yelled and shot into the sky. He wouldn't dare to keep battling against their enemies. Behind him, the open heaven realm masters from Seven Wonders Land ditched their opponents and ran for their lives. Ha ha ha! Where do you think you're going? A burly figure suddenly emerged from the gap in the Grand Array, blocking the only exit. He was none other than Bei Yushan from Scarlet Star. Besides him, Lady Qin, the Ouyang brothers, and other open heaven realm masters had also come. Seeing this, Miao Yu and the others felt their hearts sinking. Bei Yushan and the others were all fourth-order Open Heaven Realm Masters, so there was no way they could defeat the four of them and flee. Instantaneously, Bei Yushan and the Ouyang brothers led the Scarlet Star Open Heaven Realm Masters and dashed towards Miao Yu and his group. Soon, they fell into another melee. Lady Qin stood guard before the gap on her own. After she sat down with her legs crossed, she placed a zither in front of her and plucked its strings, whereupon a melodious music permeated the air. Shrieks were continuously heard as the Open Heaven Realm Masters were killed. Those from Seven Wonders Land were easily defeated as they were powerless to resist. After all, they had already lost all morale, and they indeed were less powerful than Bei Yushan and the others. Just 1 hour later, more than 10 people had been killed. Even the Yang Spirit Land Venerable's corpse had been ground into dust. Miao Yu's hair was disheveled, and he was soaked in blood as he exclaimed, "Don't kill me! I'm willing to surrender." Ignoring his plea, Bei Yushan continued hunting him down. On the other hand, Yu Xiaoshan's expression changed as he said, "Head Manager Zhao, will you please tell your subordinate to spare Miao Yu's life?" Zhao Baichuan asked, "Brother Yu, do you intend to recruit a talented person like him or something?" Yu Xiaoshan chuckled. "How can he be considered a talented person when he's afraid of death? However, he's a fourth-order Open Heaven Realm Master, so he might be useful to us in the future if we keep him alive." Since he had made such a request, Zhao Baichuan wouldn't reject him. In any case, Zhao Baichuan had already achieved his goal, so he secretly spoke to Bei Yushan and told him to stop. Soon, the battle ended. Seven Wonders Land had suffered immense losses. Only 2 fourth-order Open Heaven Realm Masters, Miao Yu and the Yin Spirit Land Venerable, were left. The Yang Spirit Land Venerable and Earth Spirit Land Venerable Wei Hua were killed in battle, while many low-rank Open Heaven Realm Masters had also lost their lives. As for the lower disciples, more than 40% had died. Although many were still alive, the people from Seven Wonders Land all appeared apprehensive as they had no idea what kind of fate awaited them. Yu Xiaoshan leaped into the air and persuaded them to surrender. Seeing as there was a chance to live, the people from Seven Wonders Land fell on their knees and kowtowed. With a satisfied look, Yu Xiaoshan nodded in approval. Then, he landed on the ground and cupped his fists at Zhao Baichuan. "Brother Zhao, it's been wonderful working with you. Seven Wonders Land has been occupied, and it's time you fulfilled your promise." Although Flying Smoke Temple had won the battle, they had also suffered some losses. Many of their disciples lost their lives, along with 10 low-rank Open Heaven Realm Masters. Nevertheless, the purpose of a battle was not the battle itself but the benefits. After the battle, the people from Scarlet Star could take control of Seven Wonders Land, so certainly those from Flying Smoke Temple wouldn't want to make a loss. Yu Xiaoshan and Zhao Baichuan had secretly come to an agreement. After they occupied Seven Wonders Land, those from Scarlet Star would settle down in this place, while the treasures accumulated over the years in Seven Wonders Land would all go to Flying Smoke Temple. This was a win-win deal as both parties could get what they wanted most. On the surface, it appeared that Scarlet Star had suffered a loss. After all the benefits would be taken by Flying Smoke Temple. However, they had just left the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary, so the treasures in Seven Wonders Land didn't really matter to them. "I won't go back on my word. Brother Yu, please help yourself." Zhao Baichuan nodded. After thanking him, Yu Xiaoshan told his subordinates to follow Miao Yu to the storehouse and take everything. The people from Flying Smoke Temple would handle the corpses on the battlefield while those from Scarlet Star wouldn't take part in it. After all, corpses had many treasures on them, so it wasn't appropriate for Scarlet Star to join. Even before blood flowed across the battlefield, both parties had agreed on the distribution of benefits. A moment later, a subordinate came over with Qi Qiao's space ring. Yu Xiaoshan took it and wiped away the imprint left on it. After scanning it with his divine sense, he fished out something and gave it to Zhao Baichuan. "Brother Zhao, if I'm not mistaken, this should be the array jade of Seven Wonders Land." Zhao Baichuan took it and replied with a smile, "Many thanks, Brother Yu. This was also a part of the deal." With this jade in his possession, Zhao Baichuan would officially become the owner of Seven Wonders Land. Yu Xiaoshan guffawed. "It belongs to you anyway. From now on, we'll be neighbors, so we should help each other out." Zhao Baichuan nodded in agreement. 2 days later, everything was settled and Zhao Baichuan said, "We've just come to this place, so we have many things to do. Brother Yu, I'll not make you stay. After this Zhao handles all the necessary affairs. I will pay you a visit." Knowing that he was not welcome any longer, Yu Xiaoshan simply decided to leave. He laughed and replied, "I'll be waiting then. Farewell." "Farewell." Zhao Baichuan nodded lightly. With Yu Xiaoshan leading the way, the people from Flying Smoke Temple escorted the captives from Seven Wonders Land and shot into the sky. Soon, they were gone. Following that, Chen Tianfei appeared distressed as he said those captives would have been useful. Yu Xiaoshan is so greedy, bringing all of them away. He's such a despicable person. With a smile, Zhao Baichuan replied, "Let him be. Those captives don't really matter. Now that we've taken control of Seven Wonders Land, we don't have to worry about recruiting people or making money." Chen Tianfei said after a laugh, "Head manager is right. In any case, isn't life full of surprises? Initially, we were here to borrow some people from Qi Chao to look for Yang Kai. Who could have expected that things would turn out this way? Yang Kai possessed unimaginable wealth, so if they could capture him and snatch everything he had, Scarlet Star's wealth would increase significantly. However, it was hard to tell whether securing a new territory or capturing Yang Kai was more important. With a solemn expression, Chen Tianfei said, "We're not afraid of that brat surnamed Yang, but he said that he's from First Inn and he has the support of Madame Lan. We don't know if it's true or not. If what he is saying is true, though, things will become thorny. After all, Madame Lan from First Inn was a 6th Order Open Heaven Realm Master, while their head manager was only in the 5th Order Open Heaven Realm. If Madame Lan stormed into their new place, they wouldn't be able to fend her off." Zhao Baichuan snorted. "Why would we be afraid of that woman? This king will also ascend to the 6th Order Open Heaven Realm sooner or later. If she has the guts to come here, this king will teach her a lesson." Chen Tianfei became excited and cupped his fists. "Congratulations, head manager." The Ouyang brothers, Lady Qin, and the others also said in unison, "Congratulations, head manager." Over the years, Zhao Baichuan had been trying to achieve a breakthrough to the 6th Order Open Heaven Realm, but he hadn't managed to do so. Now, it seemed that he had reached a point where he could achieve his goal. With the jade in his hand, Zhao Baichuan said, "Moreover, as long as I can refine this jade, I will be able to control the Grand Array. With the help of the Grand Array, he would be able to use a power that was far greater than his own even if he just broke through to the 6th Order. Moreover, the news that they had occupied Seven Wonders Land hadn't spread around, so it would be at least 8 to 10 years later before Madame Lan could find them. Upon that realization, Chen Tianfei cast away his worries. "This king has to enter seclusion, so you will handle everything," Zhao Baichuan said. After delegating power to Chen Tianfei, he left. Over the years, Scarlet Star had been managed by Chen Tianfei, so there was nothing to worry about. Chen Tianfei and the others bowed their heads and saw him off. Then, they set about cleaning up the battlefield, burying the corpses and repairing the spirit arrays. All of them were swamped with work. Initially, Scarlet Star had had some pretty decent development in the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary and they had more than 10,000 disciples. However, many of them had lost their lives in the primordial land and there were now only about 3,000 or 4,000 left. Previously, these people were not swift enough to follow Zhao Baichuan and the others as they passed through several great territories. 2 months had passed since that initial chase though, so naturally these disciples had reunited with Bei Yushan and the others. Seven Wonders Land, which consisted of 7 spirit provinces, was vast, able to accommodate over 1 million people with ease. Therefore, these 3,000 or 4,000 people were like a basin of water being poured into the ocean. They were nowhere in sight just a moment later. Rebuilding this place was a difficult task as it would take him several dozen to 100 years to finish. After all, they had too few people on their side. However, since there was hope, they were all energetic and tireless. Chen Tianfei personally surveyed the entire land. Although he had followed Wei Hua to walk around some of the places in Seven Wonders Land, he was a guest at that time. Now, from the perspective of an owner, he needed to more thoroughly understand Seven Wonders Land. Inside the cave in the shopping district, a myriad of expressions came over Yang Kai as he fell into his thoughts. The battle 2 days ago shocked him. Initially, he thought that those from Seven Wonders Land and Scarlet Star had come to an agreement, and the people from Flying Smoke Temple would definitely suffer a grave defeat. But in the end, Qi Chao, Heavenly Monarch, was plotted against by Zhao Baichuan and Yu Xiushan. In just 2 days, Seven Wonders Land had changed owners. He could not figure out how Zhao Baichuan and Yu Xiushan came into contact with each other. Nevertheless, he could understand why Zhao Baichuan coveted Seven Wonders Land. After all, their star city had been destroyed, so they indeed needed a place to settle down. It was because of this temptation that the two parties came to an agreement. The turn of events in Seven Wonders Land was actually a great opportunity for Yang Kai. Initially, Qi Qiao was the owner of this place, and he possessed the array jade. So Yang Kai hadn't thought about taking any action. However, it was a different case when Zhao Baichuan was in charge. In order to control the Grand Array, Zhao Baichuan had to first refine the array jade. In other words, Seven Wonders Land was basically defenseless at the moment. Given Yuhi's capabilities, she could easily take control of the Grand Array. Licking his dry lips, Yang Kai decided that since those from Scarlet Star had been relentlessly trying to kill him, as they had hunted him down through several great territories, he had to take this perfect opportunity to retaliate against them. Upon that realization, Yuhi looked at him with a gaze filled with anticipation. Yang Kai traded glances with her and gently nodded. At that instant, she was excited as she said, "Young master, what should we do?" "I will follow your orders." Yang Kai asked, "Do you have the confidence to defeat Zhao Baichuan?" Yuhi smiled. "Both of us are fifth-order open heaven realm masters. Under normal circumstances, we should be equally matched with neither side able to easily defeat the other. However, I have the help of the Grand Array now. If it is a one-on-one fight, I'm confident that I'll defeat him within 1 hour." She was confident of achieving this goal because she had refined 50% of the Grand Array control token over the past 2 months, so she was able to use its power to a great extent. On the other hand, Zhao Baichuan wasn't able to do so. That was the reason Su Huang, a fifth-order open heaven realm master, could raise such a huge fuss in Seven Wonders Land, severely injuring Qi Qiao and killing 3 venerable protectors in the past. He had made use of the Grand Array's power to do so. Unfortunately, he lost the battle in the end and journeyed to the Yellow Springs. Zhao Baichuan was the strongest cultivator in Scarlet Star, and Yuhi could handle him. The rest of them were the other managers. Chen Tianfei, the Ouyang brothers, Bei Yushan, and Lady Qin were all powerful fourth-order open heaven realm masters as well. Presently, Yang Kai could only make use of Lu Shui. Even if she made a move, she could only hold down a single fourth-order cultivator, leaving her unable to deal with the remaining 4. The Scarlet Flood Dragon and Earth Dragon might be able to make a contribution. Guo Ziyan wasn't taken into consideration as a second-order open heaven realm master like him would likely end up in a horrible state in such a battle. The lack of manpower gave Yang Kai a headache. Unfortunately, Zhu Jiuyin was in a state of deep sleep. If she could make a move, everything would be simple. Since he didn't have enough people, he could only deal with his opponents one by one. As long as he could take out Zhao Baichuan's subordinates, it would be easier to deal with him when the time came. "Can you locate Chen Tianfei, Bei Yushan, and the other fourth orders?" Yang Kai asked in a grim voice. Yuhi replied, "I'll give it a try." Then, she closed her eyes and grasped the array jade before trying to locate their opponents. With the help of the Grand Array, she could faintly sense what was going on in Seven Wonders Land. But due to the fact that she hadn't fully refined it yet, she was unable to sense everything. A moment later, she opened her eyes and said, "There's one in Water Spirit Land, 2 people in Fire Spirit Land, and also people in Earth Spirit Land. I'm not sure who the people are in Water Spirit Land and Fire Spirit Land, but the auras of the 2 people in Earth Spirit Land are very similar, and there isn't much difference about the fluctuations of their souls. So I believe they're the Ouyang brothers." A glint flashed across Yang Kai's eyes when he heard that. "Then we'll deal with them first." Ouyang Bing and Ouyang Lei were twin brothers who were experts in combined attack techniques. Any one of them was no match for the other managers in Scarlet Star, but after they joined forces, it was extremely difficult to deal with them. In the past, Yang Kai had traded moves with the people from Scarlet Star in the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary, so he was fully aware of that. If he could kill the Ouyang brothers, the collective power of Scarlet Star would be reduced significantly. Thinking so, he fished out a mask as thin as a cicada's wings and placed it on his face. As a thought flashed through his mind, Yang Kai transformed into a clean-looking man. 7 faces. Yuhi stared at him and muttered under her breath. Her eyes appeared conflicted as though she was walking down memory lane. You recognize this? Yang Kai was surprised, but he soon figured that she might have seen this mask before. 7 Faces was given to him by the proprietress, and Yuhi had a complicated relationship with her, so it wasn't surprising that she had seen 7 Faces before. 7 Faces was an amazing camouflage artifact that could allow the user to assume 7 different faces. The best part was that not only could this thing change a person's face, but it could also alter his aura. However, the proprietress had said that 7 Faces shared the same disadvantage as the shadowless veil. While low-rank open heaven realm masters could never see through it, there was a risk of exposure in the eyes of those in the mid-rank. The more powerful the opponent was, the easier it would be to see through this disguise. As for dealing with high-rank open heaven realm masters, trying to use 7 Faces or the shadowless veil would only lead to embarrassing oneself. After Yang Kai altered his face and aura, even the people closest to him wouldn't recognize him. Seeing as he fished out the 6 Fated Paths bag, Yuhi got his hint and relaxed her guard. Before putting her inside it, Yang Kai said, "If there's a chance in the future, I'll bring you to see the proprietress. Just apologize to her. I'm sure she will be forgiving." Yuhi forced a smile. "The mistake has been made, and Big Sister Lan will never forgive me for it. Regardless, I don't mind being beaten to death by her." A speechless Yang Kai didn't speak further as he activated the 6 Fated Paths bag and put her inside it. Then, he swung the shadowless veil to conceal his aura and figure before leaving his hiding place. It had to be said that 7 Faces and the shadowless veil worked perfectly together. One could hide the user's aura and figure while the other could alter the user's face. They were best used to do things that must not be exposed. Yang Kai was familiar with 7 Wonders Land. After all, he had lived here for a while in the past. Nevertheless, he was only familiar with the shopping district and Fire Spirit Land, as he had never visited the other 6 spirit provinces. After identifying the right direction, he headed straight to Earth Spirit Land. Presently, the Ouyang brothers were leading their subordinates to patrol around Earth Spirit Land. There were 7 spirit provinces in 7 Wonders Land. Besides the head manager, there were 5 managers left. According to Chun Tianfei's arrangements, he wanted everyone to respectively take control of 1 spirit province and handle all the matters related to it. However, it was a special case for the Ouyang brothers. They had never been separated since birth, so they insisted on occupying the same spirit province. From now on, Earth Spirit Land was their territory, and both of them were thrilled. It had been a long time since they started cultivating, but they had never been in charge of such a vast territory before. As they patrolled around, they talked about the future they were going to build. As they spoke, they turned their heads to look in a particular direction. There was a ray of light rapidly coming to them. When it landed on the ground, it faded to reveal a clean-looking young man. The Ouyang brothers were startled as they didn't think they had met this man before. However, before they could ponder over it, the young man cupped his fists and said, "Sirs, Manager Chin has a message for you." Upon saying that, he held out a jade slip with both hands. Ouyang Lei frowned and said with displeasure, "What's wrong with Chun Tianfei now?" Then he reached out for the jade slip. Ouyang Bing furrowed his brow as he felt that something was off about this whole situation, but he couldn't really tell what it was. While he was hesitating, Ouyang Lei took the jade slip and infused his divine sense into it. Right then, a horrifying aura permeated the air. The aura was so terrifying that even 4th-order cultivators like the Ouyang brothers felt cold all over their bodies, and the expressions of the other disciples changed drastically. "Divine Spirit!" Ouyang Bing exclaimed. It was evidently a divine spirit's aura. More specifically, it was Zhu Jiuyin's aura. "It's a trap." All of Ouyang Bing's hair was standing on end as he finally realized what was off. However, before he could come to his senses, 2 figures, both women, abruptly appeared. One of them raised her hand and gently landed a palm on Ouyang Lei's chest. The other person wielded her cold water longsword as innumerable sword lights engulfed Ouyang Bing. At the same time, 2 gigantic figures manifested all of a sudden. One of them blew out a mouthful of flames to burn the disciples from Scarlet Star, while the other one widened its mouth as its sticky saliva spread around and corroded space itself. World force undulated, and following a loud crack, Ouyang Lei's eyes protruded as his chest caved in. He was caught completely off guard, so Yuhi's attack almost instantly claimed his life. After all, there was already a gap of a single order between their powers, so he wasn't a match for her to begin with. Furthermore, he was stunned by the divine spirit's aura and then struck by a sneak attack. Nevertheless, after being struck by her attack, Ouyang Lei still hadn't lost his life. A fourth-order open heaven realm master had extremely strong vitality, so it wasn't easy to simply kill him. Just then, a deafening dragon roar was heard. A long spear abruptly appeared from behind Yuhi. Earlier, it was concealed by her figure, but at this moment, the spear shot past her shoulder and stabbed into Ouyang Lei's forehead. Following a loud boom, his head exploded, and blood started spurting out of his neck. "Big brother!" Ouyang Bing howled as his eyes reddened. The twin brothers had always been together since birth, and they had never been separated. Now that his big brother was killed right in front of him, Ouyang Bing nearly went mad with rage. While he was both shocked and furious though, Lu Shui wielded her sword and landed attacks on all his vital parts. At that instant, blood started gushing out of his wounds as he had been slashed countless times in his moment of distraction. Lu Shui was a powerful cultivator. After all, she was one of the leaders of Sword Pavilion in the past, and she was a master of the Sword Dao, which was especially adept at killing. When they were still in the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary previously, the Scarlet Flood Dragon was almost killed by her third eye sword, which went to show that she had exceptional battle prowess. On the other hand, Ouyang Bing was just average among fourth-order open heaven realm masters, and he had to join forces with his brother to use their combined attack techniques. Now that Ouyang Lei was dead, sending him into a fluster, there was no way he was a match for Lu Shui, not to mention that Yuhi was also coming at him at this moment. Initially, he could barely parry Lu Shui's attacks but not fight back, and presently he was in an even more perilous situation. At that instant, he seemed to have lost all hope. In the other battle, the Scarlet Flood Dragon and Earth Dragon were able to easily defeat their opponents with ease. Initially, Yang Kai was worried that these two exotic beasts might not be useful in the outer universe. But now, it seemed that they were able to gain the upper hand against the low-rank masters. As the Scarlet Flood Dragon let out a flame, the disciples of Scarlet Star struck by it would turn into fireballs and wail. On the other hand, as the Earth Dragon widened his mouth, he could easily swallow several disciples at once. The expressions of those disciples changed drastically as they wouldn't dare to go near Earth Dragon. Yang Kai wasn't standing idly by either. After destroying Ouyang Lei's head with his spear, he summoned the Yuan Magnetic Divine Bottle Gourd and opened its lid, whereupon a multicolored light burst forth and swept across the land. He was just an Emperor Realm cultivator who had condensed 4 elements into his Dao seal. Without using external forces and his divine manifestation, he was not a match for any open heaven realm master. However, things became different when he used Yuan Magnetic Divine Light. This thing was of a 6th-order metal element power, so the average cultivator couldn't resist it. As the divine light swept out, the Scarlet Star's disciples who were not open heaven realm masters were killed on the spot as holes were formed in their figures. The small number of low-rank open heaven realm cultivators widened their eyes and surged the power of their small universes to counter this light. Strictly speaking, the 6th-order Yuan Magnetic Divine Light could only be neutralized by another 6th-order element power, but that was only in a confrontation between 2 powers. An open heaven realm master had condensed the yin, yang, and 5 elements, which mutually reinforced one another in an endless cycle, allowing one to split heaven and earth apart within their bodies to form a small universe, granting access to world force. Therefore, even though they were just low-rank cultivators, they were able to resist the power of Yuan Magnetic Divine Light. Nevertheless, they couldn't possibly fend it off forever. A 6th-order element power was still too menacing for low-rank masters. Before long, a shriek was heard as Ouyang Bing's vitality was rapidly leaving him. He died shortly after. He was not a match for either Yuhi or Lu Shui to begin with, to say nothing of the fact that they had joined forces. After just a dozen breaths of time, he was killed by Lu Shui's sword. Even after his death, his eyes were still wide open in disbelief. Perhaps he could not understand why he had come across Yu He and Lu Shui in Seven Wonders Land. After 2 Fourth Order Open Heaven Realm Masters were killed, the rest of the disciples were powerless to resist. Yu He and Lu Shui charged towards the battlefield and sent all the disciples on the road to the Yellow Springs in just a moment. The battle ended just as quickly as it began. The entire process took only several dozen breaths of time. Several dozen Scarlet Star's disciples and 2 managers all lost their lives. It could be said that Yang Kai achieved an overwhelming victory in this sneak attack. Next, he threw all the corpses into the small sealed world and cleaned up the battlefield so that no one would find out what had happened. Following that, he put Yu He, Lu Shui, the Scarlet Flood Dragon, and the Earth Dragon inside the 6 Fated Paths bag before heading to Water Spirit Land. Based on the information Yu He had gathered, the Ouyang brothers were in Earth Spirit Land and there was a manager in Water Spirit Land whose identity was unknown. Additionally, there were 2 people in Fire Spirit Land. Naturally, Yang Kai would deal with the weaker party first. 1 hour later, after another great battle ended, Yang Kai let out a breath and collected the corpses. The person in Water Spirit Land was none other than Lady Qin. She had several low-rank Open Heaven Realm Masters as well as more than 100 disciples with her at the time. Yang Kai used the same trick and approached her with a changed face. Then he released Yu He and the others to catch her completely off guard. Just like the Ouyang brothers, after obtaining a territory, Lady Qin was excitedly leading her subordinates to survey around the land and thinking about the bright future ahead of her. It never crossed her mind that danger was looming. An unsuspecting Lady Qin was badly injured by Yu He's initial strike, and there was no suspense in what happened next. In just 2 hours, 3 managers and over 10 low-rank Open Heaven Realm Masters of Scarlet Star lost their lives. It could be said that the Great Force had suffered immense losses. The reasons for this outcome were that, first of all, those from Scarlet Star didn't have the slightest vigilance, and secondly, the moves Yang Kai used were completely surprising. He had the 6 Fated Paths bag to hide Yu He and the others inside and 7 faces to alter his appearance and aura. Since he was well prepared while his opponents were caught off guard, the outcome wasn't so surprising. However, they were still far from achieving their goal. Zhao Baichuan, Chun Tianfei, and Bei Yushan were still alive. 7 Wonders Land would only belong to Yang Kai after they were all dead. Although the 2 battles were not dangerous as they were at an advantage, they were still tired. After taking a rest, Yang Kai headed straight to Fire Spirit Land. There was no doubt that Chun Tianfei and Bei Yushan were in Fire Spirit Land. Although Bei Yushan was powerful, he wasn't the sharpest of individuals. Therefore, he could be fooled easily. On the other hand, Chun Tianfei was a scheming person, so it wasn't easy to deal with him. Yang Kai had no idea whether Chun Tianfei would see through his disguise when he approached him. In the orchard of Fire Spirit Land, Chun Tianfei and Bei Yushan were examining the fruits with numerous other disciples. Red fruits were hanging on the fruit trees, and seeing them all made Chun Tianfei and the others elated. There were 7 spirit provinces in 7 Wonders Land, and every spirit province had special fruit trees, which corresponded to Yin, Yang, and the 5 elements. The spirit fruits could be used to make Open Heaven pills, which was the biggest source of income for 7 Wonders Land. From now on, this became Scarlet Star's business. While they were examining the fruits, they saw a ray of light rapidly approaching from a distance before it reached them and revealed a figure. Chun Tianfei raised his head and saw the person cupping his fists. Manager Chun. Both managers Ouyang have a message for you. Upon finishing his words, he held out a jade slip with both hands. The person was none other than Yang Kai, who had said something similar to the Ouyang brothers and Lady Qin some time ago. Bei Yushan muttered, "What do those brothers want?" Then he reached for the jade slip. However, Chun Tianfei stopped him and looked dispassionately at Yang Kai. "What's your name? Why have I never met you before?" Yang Kai hung his head low. "This one is just a lowly disciple, so Manager Chun probably doesn't remember me." He felt annoyed at the fact that it was indeed difficult to deal with this fatty. Previously, when he used the same trick on the Ouyang brothers and Lady Qin, they had never asked a question, but when he did the same to this damn meatball, the latter immediately appeared doubtful. Chun Tianfei chuckled. "This king has the trust of the head manager and has been managing Scarlet Star for many years. Presently, we have 3,351 members in total, and I remember all of their names and faces, but I have never seen you before. Where did you come from? At that, Xianxia felt speechless. Was this fatty serious when he said that he could remember the names and faces of all 3,351 people in Scarlet Star? Before Xianxia could figure it out, he heard Chen Tianfei letting out a sigh as he asked, "The Ouyang brothers and Lady Qin are dead, right?" Bei Yushan widened his eyes and gazed at Chen Tianfei in disbelief. Xianxia forced a smile. "Manager Chen, you must be joking. Both managers Ouyang are patrolling in Earth Spirit Land at the moment." Chen Tianfei shook his head. "If that's true, why didn't they reply to me when I sent a message to them just now?" Besides them, it was the same case for Lady Qin. Then he narrowed his eyes as a cold glint flashed across his gaze. "Just who are you? It seems that I can't hide it anymore." Xianxia sighed and stared at Chen Tianfei. Manager Chen is indeed intelligent to be able to see through everything at a glance. "You have this young master's respect." He spoke in his original voice. Chen Tianfei widened his eyes. "Xianxia, since 7 faces could alter a person's appearance and aura, it could naturally also change his voice." Now that Xianxia had revealed his original voice though, Chen Tianfei immediately recognized it. He was stunned as he had no idea why Xianxia was here. After the people from Flying Smoke Temple left, he sent some disciples to keep guard at the gaps of the Grand Array, so there was no way someone could sneak into this place. Was he already here prior to their arrival? But if so, how did he get in? Despite not knowing the reason, Chen Tianfei was still ecstatic. "Brat, we've been looking for you for a long time now. You had a chance to flee, but you decided to reveal yourself instead. Let's see how I'm going to kill you." Xianxia guffawed. "Since I have the guts to reveal myself, I'm naturally not afraid of you. The ones who are going to die today are all of you." Then he raised his hand and swung the 6 Fated Paths bag, whereupon he and the others appeared. At the same time, Chen Tianfei waved his hand and shouted, "Activate the array!" He already had many disciples around him, and these disciples appeared to be scattered everywhere casually. But there was a great purpose behind their positioning as they were well prepared. Chen Tianfei was a prudent man, so after failing in his attempt to contact the Ouyang brothers and Lady Qin, he immediately realized that something had happened to them. In that case, it was expected that he would make some preparations. The reason he was staying in this place was that he was waiting for the opponents to walk right into his trap. Xianxia just barged into this place without knowing anything. Following his order, the Scarlet Star's disciples hurriedly activated an array. Besides that, Chen Tianfei raised his chubby hand and tried to land it on Xianxia's head. Yuhi moved to parry him with her palm, which frightened Chen Tianfei greatly. Naturally, he wouldn't dare to meet this attack. After all, he was an order below Yuhi. If they were to fight head-on, he would be the one suffering a setback. Thus he exclaimed, "Head manager." Yuhi was stunned as she turned to look in a particular direction only to see a ripple spreading out in midair. Like a ghost, head manager Zhao Baichuan abruptly appeared and flicked his sleeve, upon which an immense force swept over Yuhi. Hurriedly, Yuhi used a different move and blocked his attack. Both of them shook and stepped backwards. The outcome suggested that they were equally matched. "Lady Yuhi, you're indeed powerful." Zhao Baichuan gazed impassively at her and praised her. Yuhi smiled. "Head manager isn't bad either." Yuhi and Zhao Baichuan were both 5th Order Open Heaven Realm Masters, but they had never traded moves before. After all, there was no reason for them to fight when they were in the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary. At that time, Zhao Baichuan had to show deference to Xianxia. Upon Zhao Baichuan's appearance, Chen Tianfei managed to shake off Yuhi's pursuit and hurriedly stood beside the head manager along with Bei Yushan. The low-rank Open Heaven Realm Masters had arranged themselves into a formation which linked their auras closely together. After sealing off the surrounding space, they drifted back and forth while concealing themselves. It wasn't certain what else this formation was for. Sword Pavilion had their sword formation, and Scarlet Star had their own heritage as well. Although Xianxia was also a part of Scarlet Star for a time as the 6th manager, he had no access to its secrets. The Ouyang brothers and Lady Qin. Zhao Baichuan frowned and stared at Yuhi. "Are they dead or alive?" Earlier, he was getting ready to refine the array jade of Seven Wonders Land in seclusion, but before he even started, he received an urgent message from Chun Tianfei which said that the Ouyang brothers and Lady Qin couldn't be contacted. So something must have happened to them. Initially, he didn't believe it. After all, they had just joined forces with Flying Smoke Temple and snatched Seven Wonders Land, and before Zhao Baichuan left, the Ouyang brothers and Lady Qin were still alive and well. What could have happened to them in such a short time? Now, they were the only people in Seven Wonders Land, so who could have harmed them? Then, he tried to contact them and realized that just like what Chen Tianfei had said, they were unreachable. It was then he became aware that something was off. Following that, he halted his plan to refine the array jade and stayed hidden to observe what was going on. Yang Kai was a mere Emperor Realm Jr. who was much weaker than Zhao Baichuan, so it wasn't surprising that he couldn't sense his presence. Seeing Yu He and the others now, Zhao Baichuan immediately knew that 3 of his best subordinates had been killed. Yu He giggled. Well, of course they're dead. Zhao Baichuan's face fell. Lady Yu He, I commend you for your bravery, but your move is unwise. Do you think we have no one to deal with you all? Although Yu He had Lu Shui and Yang Kai as well as the Scarlet Flood Dragon and Earth Dragon, Zhao Baichuan had no regard for everyone else other than Yu He, a fifth-order master. As long as he could kill her, he could do whatever he pleased with the others. With a smile, Yu He replied, Head manager, what's the point of saying that? Since this mistress has the guts to appear, naturally I'm not afraid of you. In a grim voice, Zhao Baichuan said, Are you really confident that you can defeat this king? Besides the fact that he was a 5th-order Open Heaven Realm Master, he also had 2 4th-order Open Heaven Realm Masters as well as several dozen low-rank Open Heaven Realm Masters and hundreds of disciples who had joined together in a formation. On the opposing side, there was 1 5th-order Open Heaven Realm Master, 1 4th-order Open Heaven Realm Master, an Emperor Realm Jr., and 2 exotic beasts. The numbers and powers of the 2 sides were in stark contrast, so there wasn't any hope for Yu He to win the battle. We'll have to fight before we can find out who will win, Yu He said calmly. With a straight face, Zhao Baichuan said, Perhaps we can discuss this. It's not necessary for us to battle against one another. Chen Tianfei was stunned as the head manager seemed to have the intention of making peace with them. Were they not going to avenge the deaths of the 3 managers? A startled Yu He asked with a smile, Head manager, how do you propose we discuss this matter? Zhao Baichuan explained, We've just obtained 7 Wonders Land, so we do need more people to help us build up this place. You've killed 3 of our managers and this feud should be unresolvable. However, if you can swear upon your Dao heart that you will never betray us after joining Scarlet Star, we will be one family. In that case, it isn't necessary for us to destroy one another. Chen Tianfei's eyes brightened when he heard that as he admired the head manager's farsightedness. He was set on killing the people in front of him to avenge the deaths of the Ouyang brothers and the others to recover the face Scarlet Star had lost. Furthermore, they could snatch Yang Kai's wealth and use it to build a bright future for Scarlet Star. However, if head manager's suggestion worked, it would be more helpful to Scarlet Star than outright killing them. After all, Yu He was a powerful 5th-order Open Heaven Realm Master. With her help, their force would reach greater heights. If she was willing to surrender, Yang Kai could no longer make a fuss, and his wealth would naturally belong to them. Certainly, it was a clever way to solve this problem without having to resort to battle, but would these people agree to it? As expected, Yu He's laughter rang out like a silver bell as she turned to look at Yang Kai. Young master, head manager wants us to surrender to him. With a long face, Yang Kai said dispassionately in his dreams. Yu He gazed at Zhao Baichuan, head manager. You've heard my young master. Zhao Baichuan shot him a cold glance. Brat, you only have 1 life, and there's only 1 chance. Don't throw it away pointlessly. He didn't understand why Yu He, a 5th-order Open Heaven Realm Master, would listen to Yang Kai. Yang Kai said arrogantly in reply, If you fall on your knees now and swear upon your Dao heart that you will only obey this young master's orders from now on, I can consider sparing your life. Otherwise, you shall meet the Ouyang brothers and Lady Qin in hell. Zhao Baichuan bellowed, Boy, how dare you speak like that to this king? Seeing that, Chen Tianfei knew that there was no room for discussion, so he immediately yelled, Go! Upon hearing the command, The low-rank open heaven realm masters around Xianxia all formed a set of hand seals as they pushed their might through their formation in an attempt to wipe out Xianxia and his group all at once. Earlier, they had simply linked their auras through their formation but had yet to act. As soon as they made a move, space collapsed, which went to show how powerful this formation was. More importantly, the formation had the effect of sealing off the local space, making it impossible for Xianxia and the others to flee. However, Xianxia remained calm and collected. There wasn't a tinge of fluster behind his gaze. Yuhi raised her hand and smiled. You have the help of a formation, but it just so happens I have the help of a grand array. Upon finishing her words, she waved her hand gently. Following a rumble, a bolt of lightning appeared in the sky and struck towards one of the low-rank open heaven realm masters. The man targeted had his expression change drastically when he sensed the looming danger, but before he could react, he was hit. In silence, he turned into a pile of dust that scattered with the wind. Only a trace of the attack was left on the ground. The expressions of those from Scarlet Star changed drastically as Zhao Baichuan became horrified as though he had just run into a ghost. How are you able to control the grand array of this place? The lightning obviously came from the grand array of Seven Wonders Land, not from Yuhi's own power. Previously, when Qi Xiao was still in charge of the grand array, he had used this lightning to fend off the people from Flying Smoke Temple. Therefore, Zhao Baichuan could immediately recognize it. This was the grand array of a second-class great force. Even though Yuhi had only refined 50% of it, she could utilize a significant portion of its power. The dead open heaven realm master was only in the second order, so he was totally powerless to resist the grand array's strike. As soon as he was hit, he lost his life. Yuhi giggled, there are many things that you don't know. Following more rumbling sounds, a thunderstorm formed overhead and attacked Scarlet Star from all directions. Zhao Baichuan and the others turned pale and cried out as they surged their strength to protect themselves. The managers were strong, so they were able to fend off the lightning bolts to a certain extent, but the low-rank masters were not so lucky. As the rays of lightning continuously struck them, they were completely unable to counter them. Shrieks were continuously heard as half of the couple dozen open heaven realm masters lost their lives in an instant, which shattered the formation they had arranged. With the burden lifted off, Xianxia hurriedly opened the Yuan Magnetic Divine Bottle Gourd, after which the Yuan Magnetic Divine Light swept across his opponents alongside the thunderstorm. Lu Shui wielded her cold water longsword as icy sword lights filled the air and slaughtered her opponents. The gigantic Scarlet Flood Dragon and Earth Dragon also charged into the crowd, horrifying all who were still standing. Cheap slut! Stop this instant! Zhao Baichuan widened his eyes and bellowed. As the aura of his world force undulated, he charged at Yuhi. Yuhi sneered, and as a thought flashed through her mind, the grand array changed again. A thick fog suddenly appeared and engulfed a large region. Yuhi, Zhao Baichuan, Chen Tianfei, and Bei Yushan were all covered in it. The fog roiled as the sound of battle was heard coming from it. The three managers of Scarlet Star were heard shouting and yelling, but their figures couldn't be seen. This was the convenience of being able to control the grand array. Yuhi was in the fifth order open heaven realm, so her strength was only on par with that of Zhao Baichuan. However, with the help of the powerful grand array, she could deal with 3 people on her own, which allowed Lu Shui to kill the other opponents with ease. Initially, there were several dozen low-rank open heaven realm masters. Nevertheless, over 10 of them lost their lives following Xianxia's sneak attack, and half of them were killed by the lightning that was controlled by Yuhi. Now, the remaining ones were all injured. As the aura of Lu Shui's fourth order open heaven realm might permeated the air, they did not dare to confront her. Furthermore, the sixth order Yuan magnetic divine light controlled by Xianxia spread throughout the sky, damaging all who were caught in it. In addition, the Scarlet Flood Dragon and Earth Dragon were ferociously attacking their enemies. The low-rank open heaven realm masters lost their lives as their corpses fell from the sky, and in just several dozen breaths of time, most of them were dead. Only 3 to 5 people managed to survive and flee. Lu Shui wanted to kill to the last, but Xianxia stopped her. There's no need to chase after them. He turned to look at the fog. The low-rank open heaven realm masters, who had fled, didn't matter. Now they had to focus on dealing with the remaining 3 managers of Scarlet Star. He was relying on the grand array to contend with the three of them at once. But she hadn't fully refined the array jade yet, so the power she could wield was limited. Presently, she was battling against three people on her own, so it wasn't certain how long she could trap them. All of a sudden, a burly figure shot out of the fog. It was none other than Bei Yushan. This guy's eyes were bloodshot, and he was shrouded in murderous intent. After he left the fog, he appeared startled. When he was inside the fog earlier, he was unable to fully display his power, and he wasn't even sure where he was, which enraged him. As he charged around violently, he unexpectedly got out of the fog. When he raised his head and saw Yang Kai and Lu Shui, he directly yelled, "I'll kill you too." Cracks started appearing on the ground beneath his feet, and like a beast that had broken free of its cage, Bei Yushan pounced on Yang Kai and Lu Shui. The Scarlet Flood Dragon and Earth Dragon dashed forward, but they were sent flying away by his fists, their huge figures falling to the ground and damaging a large part of the orchard.